This conference will now be recorded.
I need to talk to you about something that I found out. I did not check it for you. How are you?
I'm well.
I'm here. Oh, no, this is. Ready for. Yeah. I'll be down. Yes, sir. It's a week away.
I know, right?
We're gonna pull off items 5 and 9. So I'm gonna make that, if you'll make a motion,
Yeah.
postpone them until further notice.
That's what I'll get you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's what I'll.
Why are you
In this
49?
committee.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
9. Oh, that's solid waste days. They pulled it off the agenda the other day, yesterday, did you not? Solid waste.
Yes, sir.
Pulled it, so we have nothing to review.
Okay.
It was pulled off yesterday.
And the other one I'm talking about are the meeting dates.
I have to make sure that I'm looking at the differences, the rate fees, is that for the rate study or the other one? So,
Well,
Well, we gotta get, that whole thing's gotta get fixed.
yep,
you've got two things.
yeah, I know,
Started.
and it's
Lack
confusing.
of implementation.
Yep,
You don't really have that.
is that what we were discussing there?
Well, the rates, the whole rate study, we should not have accepted that rate study. in hindsight. Shouldn't have accepted it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't give enough weight to commercial. Residential is paying the
But
low.
wait a minute.
True. I am.
The report. We didn't do the report. We just accepted the report. Now, what we do with that damn thing is up to us.
Yeah, I know, but I wouldn't accept it.
Well, I know.
Not,
We're a public body. We gotta struggle with
Find the roster.
Money's worth. I didn't feel we got our money's worth.
again. That's before our time.
I know.
So get over it.
I know.
So
I see right now.
so that's where he likes to sit.
Oh, he doesn't, he likes to be down there with electricity.
He wants everybody to know he.
I want to be in the corner.
He thinks sitting down there, he doesn't get on the screen. He's not invisible.
We're a public meeting now. So did you learn anything the other night?
You know,
I did, I think I actually learned a lot about,
it'd be nice in our legal committee if the city attorney would show up, wouldn't it?
it gave me a lot of material.
We got one, but we don't have the other one.
He was here a while ago.
He's got 1 minute to get here.
He was working there.
Because I was listening to what they were saying and I was studying it.
Yeah.
And
What I do every meeting.
Okay.
that's all.
I'm gonna let you guys do your reports first.
Okay.
Shelley may not be here until 7.
Okay, I want you to have to sit.
I was listening to the mayor and.
That's just-
I hope it's an answer to
I don't like anything. We're gonna move that.
On yours?
I'll have someone make a motion for that. I need one of you guys to make a motion. I would love.
Oh, we're in session?
No, we're gonna get there,
Oh, okay.
but I want to move the department.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to sit around.
So I got two things to remember.
She can remember one of them.
Which one do you want?
Okay, I got which one? I'll pick one.
Move the department reports
To the first thing.
to the first thing on the agenda.
Okay, and I have to say that at the beginning, right?
And I'll do 5 and 9.
Yeah.
Actually, I sit over here.
The first time I sit over there and I was using my computer.
All the chairs of the committees. I don't know how to do this. I need to ask Tess, but I want some things I'm learning about.
Actually, I wanna. They don't allow you over there.
It's not decision making thing, but I want to.
No, I just,
Absolutely.
well, I look at that training.
We need to do the
Their
PowerPoint.
fault,
Yeah.
DA's fault.
I only have, well,
Is that your job today?
is that part of my list job?
Yeah, that's probably not a good call.
I guess, I don't.
I was thinking.
Your radar.
So, so it's,
He left. He said, I'm not doing it. No, I didn't.
Where's the attorney?
He was here.
he's updating.
Hi, Mr. Burns.
He'll be here shortly. See, this top part, this is supposed to read, administrative code. But he's grabbing. There he is.
Good.
Finally got it.
Call to order the legal committee meeting for Thursday, August 27th, 2022. Let the record show it is 4:02.
Counselor Hildebrand,
President.
Counselor Arnold,
Present.
Counselor Oropesa,
Here.
Counselor Corn.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I've got two corrections. I don't know if they're corrections or not necessarily, but item number 5 and item number 9, I'd like to remove them from the agenda, subject to rescheduling at a future date.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second to remove items 5 and 9 from the agenda, postpone them until future date. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. There being no opposition, passes 4-0.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move the, hang on one second. Department item 11 to the top of the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Wait a minute, it's not my turn to second.
No, what I was going to say is at least I didn't hear the approval of the minutes.
Got to that.
Haven't got there yet.
We're
We're still on the agenda.
We're on the agenda. You know, that's what happens when you sit at that end of the table. You can't be up here so you understand what.
That kind of stuff.
We can get you an extension cord.
Are you going to second her motion or you want me to do it?
I'll second it.
All right, there you go.
I have a motion and a second to change the agenda item number 11 to make it a first item on the agenda. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, item so moved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
There you go.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Counselor.
I move to approve the legal committee meeting minutes of October 27, 2022, as presented.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the legal committee meeting on Thursday, September 22nd, 2022. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, there being no opposition, vote passes. You know what's great about September 22nd?
What's that?
I was born on that day.
Oh, yeah, I remember we had cake, we had cupcakes. That's
Yeah, that's
great.
right.
I have one more little question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
When I got my packet, I'm missing page 1 and 2. It's blank sheets of paper. And I borrow somebody's, but my written document starts with number 3.
Mine too.
well,
It was shoved in there.
You didn't get, this is one,
Yes.
this is two.
Oh,
That's correct.
oh, this was just an extra sheet of paper.
That's,
Wait a minute, I'm going to recycle it.
In case you wanted to take notes, Council.
so,
All right.
okay.
Let's go.
Now that we have moved item number 11 to being item 1, do we have a report from the city clerk's office?
I didn't get told someone, no.
I know that the interim clerk is,
Yes, the clerk's office is at clerk training today, so today was parliamentary procedure. They'll be back next week. And all able parliamentarians already, but improved.
okay. So received. Next item, departmental report is legal committee.
The legal committee continues to do legal things.
Can you attest to that?
Yes. In the past month, we've received one new tort claim notice. It's being processed, similar, which is a great month, in my opinion. We produced a new piece of legislation for your, or ordinances for your consideration. We're also, as reported in the paper, actively working towards some form of resolution with our airport litigations. Those, we seem to be making headway with that to something that'll be mutually desirable by all parties.
And let it be the legal department report that's in the package stand as is. Thank you, Counselor.
He's your attorney. Oh, counselor as in the legal term.
That's legal.
Well, see, I'm simple-minded. I get all confused when you use the
Well,
same
I can
term
use
you
that
refer to
term
me.
because Josh is also a counselor at law.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Next item is human resources.
Yeah, so before you guys, you have the report that we gave you guys for the turnover rates. So what we did is the first time I was doing this kind of report for you guys, so I'm assuming we might want some changes or any questions. So the first report that you guys have before you is the department turnover rate for the month of September. So any department that lost an employee, went ahead and did a monthly turnover rate. So as you can see, we go from 25%. Central control would be 7.7. Animal control is 11.1. PD is 0.84. Airport's about 10%. Same thing as water, customer service. Wastewater is at 9.5. Public works is 3.6. Museum is 7.1. Zoo is 10.5. Solid waste is 7.0. And then finance is 10%. Fires are like 1.1, and then office 7.7. And then we go on to the next little graph. You'll see year-to-date turnover. It's from January to present. And it's everyone that they have lost from the beginning of the year until present, which was last week. I want to say it was until the 16th of October. So of course, a lot of departments have what looks like a high turnover rate. I will say for some departments, it's those departments kind of what we call stepping stone, where they're either losing those because they're a lower paying job to a higher paying position. And then the last graph, there's going to be a vacant position by department. And I just put in there on the top row, the amount of FTEs that was budgeted, and then the amount of vacancies in red. I stand for any questions.
Your turnover, we lost 18 people in September. Is that an average
Yes, it is.
or is that a low number for you?
It's average. It seems like as we're bringing in about 18 to 19 people, we're losing about 18 to 19 people.
Yeah.
That's kind of the trend for the last few months.
I didn't tell me that the vacant positions that we have,
About 70.
70.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the difficulty in finding those 70?
It's just really, right now, we're just on the amount of applicants we were getting about 2 years ago, right? I can tell you now for an admin position, we're getting an average of maybe 8 to 10 before we used to get anywhere between 25 to 50.
Yeah.
So we just, applicants just are not applying. And we're advertising in Indeed, we're advertising through our city website. Of course, Juanita's putting stuff up on Facebook, so
You're just not getting them.
no, we're just not.
Counselor.
I told her I was going to ask some questions, but she actually answered the question that I had, because the monthly turnover, I didn't realize it was a percentage.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
Yeah.
And the other question that I would have is, I think last month we discussed this to some degree, but not in detail, whether there were exit interviews being done for the individuals that are exiting.
There is not right now, our policy, it is actually optional for them to do exit interviews. We've only received one exit interview and I received it last week and it was from the GM at Convention Center. But it's optional for our employees to do an exit interview. We don't require them to. That's our policy states right now.
They just don't care to
They just don't
participate.
care to participate, no.
We offer it to them,
Yes.
but if they don't want to do it,
I guess if they're on their way out, it really doesn't matter.
Well, you would like to know why they're,
Yes, you would like
we would to see if there's some corrective action that we need to be taking.
from their standpoint, I guess it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Counselor, I have a question from EDC.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, the EDC is going to host a hiring event early November. We're putting that together right now. So the city has always been a participant, so I'm expecting we're going to do our part to get one for it.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll definitely participate. We participate with EDC every year, so we'll do that. Yes, sir.
Great. Counselor,
Of these vacant positions,
Yes, sir.
how many of them would be considered critical? You're standing there, and I know it's just, you probably have a clue to these various departments. Is your two positions, for instance, you're here, are they critical positions? I mean, you're going to shut down if you don't get them?
I mean, we're a little tight animal control, but we're dealing with it. We've got one on deck to hire there.
And he actually was offered the job, so he'll start November, I believe, 7th.
Okay. Well, I guess this falls into your lap. I would like, because we don't have time to visit all these departments today, but I would like to know, transit, is it a critical position? Are they driving a bus? Well, that's probably fairly critical. Public relations, is it a critical position? I mean, is it, I need some kind of, and I don't know what the matrix is going to look like. I don't know where you draw that line of what's critical and what's not critical. Obviously, if we're short, if sanitation on here,
Yes.
how many are they short?
As of today, it's going to be 5 because they just had somebody resign as of yesterday. So now we're up to 5.
Well, if they're a critical position, like driving a trash collecting truck, that's pretty critical.
Right.
If they're standing out there leaning on the shovel, needed, especially in that business, especially whenever we have fires out there, where's the chief go? You sit behind the chair, so I can't look at you real easy. Whatever reason, then they got to go out there and dig that
you're blessed.
force up if they can. I mean, I get it, but I'd like some clarification on those numbers, not necessarily for this committee, but more so for the finance committee.
And with one, to your point there, the zoo is only staffed.
Well-
They actually
Or
have,
those part-time
those are
people.
part-time people. So what they've been doing is through the outward staffing. So they are using a temporary staffing agency right now, but they were allowed to have those amounts of positions there if they chose to do city positions or do the temp agency. So they do have those that they are using through Elwood and I think it's West.
So they're really not 10 short.
Not potential. We just haven't filled those positions. I didn't want to mess
Gotcha.
with the numbers. I want to make sure we have true numbers.
Yeah.
This all for further discussion, but I think you know where
I
I'm
think
headed.
others preliminary, my thoughts of critical positions and what's needed in the operations.
I mean, if we got a main out somewhere, everybody that can man a shovel is probably pretty critical at that moment. I get it. But I don't have my arms around this tree yet, and I'm working on it. So I need your assistance.
Now, we've done ask for the departments who have been kind of shorthanded when sanitation runs into an issue. We do borrow from the water department or wastewater if we are in need that. In a desperate need, they will come in and help us for 2 or 3 days to get caught up. So they are working that.
So you're sharing employees.
Yes, we definitely.
Okay,
That's great.
that's a good.
Counselor.
To that point, when you borrow from department to department, is there a consideration that some of them may be union and some of them may not be
They're all union. So we can give them a written notice to let them know that we're going to be doing this stuff and sending them notice that we may be switching them departments as a department need.
And so do they get paid if it's a higher range,
Would be out of class, yes, 5%.
they do get paid?
If it requires, usually a number of the operators are all at the same grade, so they're all getting paid appropriately. So sometimes if there's a lower grade employee that goes into higher, we do give the 5% out of class.
Okay. Thank you.
That's the
I like to
answer.
get that part figured out.
Any further questions from anyone?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank all of your departments for reports today.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotta get paid. Next item on the agenda is item 1, the Roswell Air Center release and agreements, in particular Aerocell, Ascent Aviation, Cleanup Enterprises, and J&S Mechanic. Back again.
Back again. This first lease that I'll be presenting is for Airsail. They are looking to rent a parcel of land that is north of their current Hangar 85 with the intention of building a hazmat storage building there to properly store their items. It is something that we have been working with them on since June. I know there were some compliance issues they were trying to get into, and this will alleviate that. They've already put a storage building in between 58 and 66, but this land they did not have in their leasehold, and so we're asking to add that. I do need to make an amendment to the term. They are expiring instead of June 30th of 2024 to May 31st, 2024. The change for the request for that change is just so that Hangar 85 and this land parcel expire at the same time in ease of renewing those leases together. They've agreed that the hazmat building becomes the city's property at the point that this lease expires. And so then we will take on the structural maintenance of the roof and the structure, but all other maintenance on that second lease will be theirs. In this lease, the entire maintenance program is theirs until we take it over.
The initially it's all theirs.
Correctly. Yeah. So this lease will actually only run for 1 year and 7 months, and then it will become the Air Center's property or structure. And then the termination clause, paragraph 31 has changed, and I did bring updated leases for y'all to look at. Airsail proposed a separate or a different agreement in lieu of the other party. Read it to you, so I'm going to read it, but then I'll hand it to you. That works. The termination clause states that in addition to the foregoing rights of the landlord to terminate this lease, in the event of breach by tenant, the lease may be terminated by landlord upon majority vote of its governing body, which shall become effective 60 days following such vote.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I actually like the language myself.
Any questions, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
On your exhibit A,
Yes.
so this blue line on the north end, there's a partial fence that runs across there. Where is that in relation to that fence that's already there?
They are on the side of the fence, so I need to ensure that the general aviation pilots can get out of the hangars.
So they're, okay, we'll call it more. But that's a tight spot.
It is, and I measured the space between the two T hangars as well to make sure it exceeded that parcel, and it does.
Okay.
That's an open parcel. It's not fenced. Correct.
Well, no, there's a fence that runs
Right there.
right
Yes,
there.
On that blue line.
yes.
And it is tight. I've used it several times myself. It's extremely
I have copies for all of you, so.
If you're not real careful, you'll.
How,
Thank you.
let me ask you this, you're out there all the time. Why is,
All of that stuff, Mr. Chairman, this photo was taken, all those white dots you see immediately to the right of the blue line
Yeah.
extended to the north were aircraft engines that were on cradles. And when we got into the little situation, and I think most of those crates in front of those two jets there,
Those are all gone.
but I mean, it's all gone, but they were jet engines sitting there.
is that unleased space?
Yeah, that has been moved down to the air sales other leasehold. So we
Yeah.
asked them to clear that ramp space, and even that little island area is clear. And it's something that we'll focus on them for. They do have aircraft parks there now that are being checked for maintenance, but those can always be moved when we upon request.
They cleaned all that up since.
And well, you said that was a tight space. I don't know how the heck you get in and out.
Well, there was some times,
Engines were there.
there was some times I wasn't real sure we were going to get out of there.
And I don't know what our relationship is that allows them to do that.
Well, I don't know, but they cleared it out. The trick is don't let them get back in there.
But that's going to be something the airport commission needs to look at, not us, to make sure that stuff's taken care of.
I agree. And Mr. Hitchcock is aware of that situation, the before and after, I think, so he's on there, so.
Any other questions concerning the air cell lease? I guess legal has reviewed these leases and find them to be appropriate. Josh?
This lease, the termination clause spoke about it. When they proposed it, he thought it was a good thing. The only thing I would say is it doesn't have a unilateral termination for convenience clause, which the city likes to enjoy for as the sovereign. But certainly negotiated.
My only comment is, given the duration of the lease, if we wanted to terminate quickly, that's just not going to be an option, but it's a 7-month lease, so.
It's 1 year and 7
Oh, sorry, 1 year and 7 months. So we're talking about at least
19 months.
Right. So there's not, it's legally sufficient. It's just a question of, is that something you're comfortable with making, forcing a 90-day turnaround effectively?
Well, that's been a topic of discussion in this committee.
Mhm.
The termination clause in these leases has been, we spent considerable time on it. This is a step in the right direction, in my opinion. Is it complete? I don't know. We'll have more discussion.
Right. I don't think that's a critical piece. And they currently lease this now? Yeah.
Currently lease this.
No, this is a neighborhood.
Show that to board.
So when this photo was taken, whose property is inside that lease?
That's part of the reason that they're.
So they've been using that thing?
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No. Learned something new.
Some of us knew.
Any further questions? There being none, entertain.
You through with this?
Everybody has a copy.
Oh, we've got a copy now?
Yeah, there's
Yes, sir.
You got an extra?
And that's his.
Did the tenant request a 1 year and 7-month term?
Yes, sir. They are wanting to merge their exploration with their hangar 85 lease term. So they're looking to negotiate that as a leasehold next fall.
So their intent is to continue to lease this with the hangar.
Correct.
That it comes to lease.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just so you know, Mr. Kunkel, we ask that when leases come here, that have been approved by both parties so that we don't find something in here and then kick it back and slow the process down. That if the other party has agreed to what the city's terms are, then it comes to us and we don't have to sit there. It's been negotiated already. So in this case, the term was negotiated.
I'll try to remember that. Well, we're hopeful you
You'll get
guys
it.
will get
You'll
it.
get a reminder if it doesn't.
Yeah. She's had several reminders
Yeah.
for various things. Yes.
Yes.
25 cents a square foot is,
Correct space.
yeah. Right. Okay. Any further questions? I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to consider recommending for approval to authorize AirCell Inc. to enter into a lease for airport operations area land at the Roswell Air Center.
Want that on a consent agenda or full council?
Let's recommend it to the consent.
Motion, second. Recommending approval of the aerosol lease by consent, putting it on the consent agenda for full council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, so moved. Now let's talk about Ascent Aviation. You get to go again.
So Ascent Aviation is currently located in Building 100, which is kitty corner, the parts of the building they're looking to rent. That's their ground servicing equipment building and their office space that they're currently working out of. We've been in Building 117 on an interim lease since April. So we're converting the interim lease into a regular lease hold. We are using that as a park entry shop to build the crates to pack all of their parts up that they're dismantling from aircraft and ship them out. So this is a 5,000 square foot building. I will say it has a brand new roof on it. Its exterior's been painted. The entire inside has been gutted and new insulation foams been sprayed at the bottom to help with waterproofing. And also new drywall has been put in from the ceiling to the floor. They have an operating swamp cooler. Part of what we have agreed with the higher rent rate that they are going to be paying is that they will go ahead and we're going to go ahead and put an HVAC system in. So that gives us a return of investment within this year to pay for that the heating system. So they are looking to pay $4.50 a square foot for this parcel, making 12 monthly installments of $1,875 with a total per year of $22,500. All maintenance and everything is on them.
Are they anticipating doing any improvements themselves inside the facility?
I don't think there's any to really do. I mean, it's a brand new interior and exterior.
Okay.
So I don't think they have a whole lot of work that they'll have to listen to.
12-month lease, so. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor.
There being none, may I receive a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend to full council approval to authorize Ascent Aviation to enter into a lease for building 117, which consists of 5,000 square feet. And the term of the lease is for 1 year, commencing on November the 1st, 2022 and ending October the 31st, 2023, in the amount of $22,500 payable in 12 monthly installments of $1,875.
Second,
I have a
You want to do it on consent?
you want it on full.
It doesn't matter. Consent is fine.
So I have a motion to place the Ascent Aviation lease.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, forgive my interruptions, but there is a resolution out there that says airport leases are on consent.
They are.
So I would think if you don't want them there, then you want to pull it off. But ordinarily, if they go on consent anyway, there's a resolution.
And they can be pulled to council.
Sure.
Yeah. So I have the Ascent Aviation lease to be placed on the consent agenda for next council meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, there being no opposition, 4-0. Next item is the lease agreement with Cleanup Enterprise.
Mr. Chair, before we go into that,
Yes, sir.
it's a matter of being transparent. I don't know if I need to recluse myself on this particular one or not, so I'm going to ask for a legal opinion because the person that owns this enterprise is third cousin of mine. I have no interest in the business or anything like that, but the fact that we are related.
That's sufficiently far enough related under the Government Ethics Act that you don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
Did she have to claim him too?
I didn't say it's a she.
Please.
Perfect. Cleanup Enterprises is requesting a lease for building 67. They've been in there for several years. They use the 978 square feet for storage of janitorial supplies. The building does have electrical, water, but does have a non-functioning bathroom in it. The tenant definitely says that he doesn't even use the electrical, quite frankly, but it is in his unit to be used. He was previously paying $1.83 per square foot. And we are moving him up to the classification where the building it's kept dry. It's got electrical and water at $2.25 a square foot. And I stand for questions.
Any questions? May I receive a motion then, please?
Oh, they're waiting for me.
It's your turn.
Well, I didn't know we were keeping track.
I am.
All right. I move that we move the J&S Mechanical
No, Cleanup Enterprise.
Cleanup Enterprise, excuse me, I'm on the wrong page. Lease to the full city council on the consent agenda, just to clarify, and I know it's going to drive Ms. Stubbs nuts for me to do it that way, but.
Your choice.
Okay, do I have a motion and a
Second.
second?
Mr. Chair, did he say consent? You said consent. right?
Although I'm told I don't have to do that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Cleanup Enterprise lease placed on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, so moved. Next item, the J&S Mechanical lease.
Okay, I'm on the right pew now.
The J&S Mechanical is requesting a lease for building 61. They are also an existing tenant. This lease term will be for 5 years, commencing on November 1st and then ending October 31st of 2027. When we were working through our negotiations, we discovered that they had not had a CPI increase through the entire time that they were in their last leasehold. So we agreed to bring them up from $2.95 to $3.41, which is the equivalency of us getting CPI all the way to where we are today. They have installed a temperature control unit in the building, and they also repaired the entire perimeter fence while they've been a tenant. So they'll be looking at paying $404.89 as opposed to $350 per month.
How many square feet did you say is in this facility? 1,400 square feet?
Yes.
Okay. The termination clause,
That one is mutual, either party, and it's 180 days.
180 days. Okay. Any questions? Councilor Arnold? Turn.
Mr. Chair,
He is keeping wrong.
I'd like to make a motion to consider recommending approval to authorize J&S Mechanical to enter into a lease for building 61.
Second.
Can you place that on the consent?
We don't have to,
We
but
don't
we're
even
going
have
to today because we're slow to learn.
So
I understand it automatically goes on there.
have a motion and a second on the J&S Mechanical lease at the Roswell Air Center. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. There being no opposition, so moved. Next item on the agenda, is the Roswell Air Center Strategic Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I will be presenting this item. This is the strategic plan for the Roswell Air Center. And the Air Center is seeking a qualified consultant to lead the Air Center through a strategic planning process. Now, the purpose of this effort is to focus on developing the mission, the vision, goals, and plans for the next 3 to 5 years of the Air Center. The recommended scope of work that's before you outlines the expectations of the planning process and deliverables to include the initial findings report, foundational plan, draft strategic plan, and the final strategic plan. I will direct you, Mr. Chair, committee members, if you want to look a little bit more detail under page 29, which is section 2A-B, provides a list of 9 items that will be included in the final report, which is quite extensive of the work that will be done. The funds for this plan have not been allocated in the FY23 budget and will require a budget adjustment if awarded. The RFP scope of work has been reviewed by the legal department. The Airport Advisory Commission recommended approval 4-0 of the scope of work and the evaluation criteria at their meeting on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. Mr. Chair, committee members, I will stand for any questions, and I can see some of the members from the Airport Advisory Commission present, as well as the chair, that may help to answer any questions you may have on this RFP for the strategic plan. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Mr. Fuentes. Yes, sir.
There, Mr. Chair, my question would be, what kind of funds are we talking about?
Mr. Chair, committee members, I spoke to some of the airport consultants here at the infrastructure conference, and they believe that it would be reasonable to expect a plan like this, that a budget of up to $120,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fuentes, let me ask you a question. Could that be paid out of some of those grants or as a refundable expense that we talked about, I believe, in the last finance meeting, where some of these items we can, I think it was it under the State Department of Transportation grant? Would this qualify as a reimbursable operating expense?
Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm not familiar with that grant agreement, but I will look into it and see if that is a possible funding source. Should the council proceed forward, I could have that information at the council meeting if you wish to move it forward to the council, but I'll need to review that grant agreement that you're referring to, sir.
I'd appreciate that, because that may be a way to fund this without having it be a budget adjustment. I think we took some items, if you, I don't know whether you recall, but under the ILEA grant, some of those operational expenses that we now have pushed over and can get that reimbursed under the as an operational expense under that grant. So if you would look into that, I would be appreciative.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion or questions? There being none.
I was actually thinking about what I wanted to say. I would actually like to hear Mr. Carville's thoughts on it.
Sure.
We don't have the plan, and we need one.
Yes.
So that was brought forward and discussed pretty significantly in this commission. And this is probably the best way to make that happen, and probably the quickest way.
Do you feel that it's a sufficient plan?
The detail in addition to this is pretty extensive.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay.
The last plan we have at the airport, but correct me if I'm wrong, is a 10-year-old plan, is it not?
That or older.
Mr. Chairman, there's no strategic plan for the Air Center.
No.
We've been trying to, we as the Airport Advisory Commission, we've been talking about this since I've been on the commission for 3 years. Previous commission members have talked about this since 2017. So it's been talked about and it's been pushed forward because, as I mentioned to former chair of the Advisory Commission some months ago, that's unfair to our city or to our staff without giving them the parties that this plan will provide as objectives and the wherewithal to be truly operational in an efficient manner.
Thank you, Mr. Redmond. I agree. It's not fair to the staff if they don't know what the plan is out there. And so it's something that is desperately, in my opinion, needed so that we can drive that airport forward and take that diamond in the rough and shine it up and make it a diamond that we can all be proud of. So,
We have to use it.
oh, I get it.
Just put it on the shelf.
Okay. So, any further discussion? Being none, I believe it is
My turn.
Councilor Boilerface's turn.
Before I make the motion, would you like, Mr. Chair, to attach a dollar amount to it or just leave it open?
I think we just need to leave it open and see what this thing, what the RFP is going to come back and tell us what it is. And then hopefully we can find a funding method through finance to get this thing taken care of.
Well, Mr. Chair, I moved that we recommend to full council approval of an RFP scope of work for a strategic plan for the Roswell Air Center.
Have a motion.
Second.
And a
Also be consent.
pardon?
I'm just saying, it could also go on consent.
I think something, yeah.
I have no problem with being on consent.
It's your call, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If you want it on consent, we'll put it. If it gets pulled, it gets pulled.
Consent would be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Is your second same as change it consent item?
I'm thinking, well, I guess you can pull it from consent, so.
Yeah.
If you're not
Okay.
comfortable,
Anyone can pull it from consent.
The reason I say that's because I'd like more information, and usually when they're on consent, unless you pull them, they don't,
Sure.
So I personally would like it on full council.
Good. Fine.
Changes his motion to full council.
Second.
Second is on full council. All those in favor of the Roswell Air Center Strategic Plan RFP being sent to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda, the Felix Farm lease. It's your turn, Todd.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and council, councilors. What I've got here is our Felix Farm lease. We are asking for a lease known as Felix Farms to Diamond Heart Farms that is owned by David Pack. So in this one, Diamond Heart Farms that's owned by David Pack has been farming the Felix Farms property since the mid-1980s. The proposed lease is a 10-year lease with one 5-year extension, a total of $9,025 annually. After the first year of the term, the rent will be adjusted every year by 3% or consumer price index, whichever is greater, and they will provide insurance. We're asking for the 10-year term with one 5-year extension because Mr. Pack has plans to improve the irrigation system at his investment cost of $61,538.42 as attached as Exhibit B. The lease renewal did have a 33% increase because when I took a look at this, it had not been adjusted at all. So in negotiations with Mr. Pack to bring that property at this here, the property, that particular property with its improvements and amenities will be at market rate and will stay there because it will get a adjustment every year. So we went from $68.58 an acre to $95 an acre. Diamond Heart Farms, of course, is owned by David Pack, and they've been running it since the 80s. The city attorneys have reviewed the proposed lease agreement, and I am recommending approval for this lease. And there it is. You can see where the farm lease is at. It's right over off of the bypass just north of McGaffey. Thank you.
Council.
Just one question. how is fair market value determined?
Okay, so with farm leases, there is, fair market value is determined by the average farm value of farmland in the state of New Mexico. So from there, then I look at different criteria, crop mileage charge from the site to where everything is being processed, the fertilized delivery for the land, the hand labor for the irrigation, because it doesn't have any sort of irrigation on that property, and then the volume of water that's needed on that land. So this one not ever being really kind of caught up market rate, Mr. Pack knew that, and he expected an increase on that. So once we got that up to $95 an acre on that property, again, with CPI being added to that every year, it should hold now at market rate for the amenities on that property.
Okay, thank you.
I have the same question. I don't know. And we're delivering, how many acre feet of water are associated with this property, you know?
I do not know, but I know that there is a report that we will get from the state's office if it exceeds the amount being drawn. So I've never received. Yeah, 3, okay.
3.5 per acre. So he's got 900. I'm just trying to think of what the lease just for the water rights are, let alone the dirt.
Is that senior artesian, junior, shallow? The idea is what kind of water right?
I don't on that, sir.
That significantly impacts farm leases in this area.
Okay.
Yeah. I wonder whether we are at right market rate, especially with senior water rights associated with that property.
Scott, I understand what you said from the state and how they figured stuff. I would, if there's any way to gather some local data on farm leases of similar water rights, that would be a preferred method.
Okay.
In my thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you've already negotiated it with the property owners.
Yes, sir.
With the tenant, so.
Who owns the water rights on this property?
We do.
We do?
City does.
Okay.
This is I believe they've got to be, I believe we own all senior rights, do we not?
I don't know if they're senior, but they're.
Yeah.
That kind of
That's
puts
that.
fly in me a little bit.
In my conversations with Mr. Pack, the current well equipment there, in his estimation, would be unlikely in its current condition to ever be able to actually pump that water out, notwithstanding the water system. So as I understand it, he's wanting to invest in distribution networks, but not necessarily into the extraction and associated casing that would be necessary in order to get that water actually out of the ground.
Yeah. Who's responsible for the well, for the pump?
Well, as I recall in this lease, the city is responsible for, if to the extent that the well and the piping and stuff is structural, the city is responsible for it. That said, there's like a deductible feature of this lease so that Mr. Pack pays the first, I think, $1,000 of any repairs that occur out there related to that, but it's otherwise, it's understand an unimproved property.
Okay.
Structures to speak of.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Was it understanding that he was going to put irrigation equipment on it? Did I understand that right?
He is I did not actually see Exhibit B. We discussed it on the phone, and he was, as I believe, he was intending to contract with Wade Irrigation to put in piping underground to facilitate the distribution of water. We did have a discussion, he was contemplating as to what type of irrigation equipment he may have to put on the property. That would be not necessarily a fixture of the piece of equipment.
Okay. As she said here, he was gonna put a 1,320-foot used side roll assembly.
Yeah.
And 2,100 feet of 8-inch pipe with risers. So that's,
right.
So it'd be a movable deal.
He suggested that the side roll would be is probably what would be recommended. Like I said, I haven't looked at that exhibit, but said he would leave it up to the judgment and discretion of whatever Wade recommended, being that they are experts.
So if he's gonna purchase that, that's, that makes his stuff a lot cheaper. If we're not producing the well he'll use, he should have to pay for the water rights if we're not using our well. At some point in time, we ought to be setting aside some money or something towards the repair of that well to keep the value of the property. I mean, I know it might all get moved away, but if we're not going to use it, we ought to plug it. If it's not fixable, we ought to fix it. I was just wondering if the irrigation system that he put on there, if it became the property of us. If it's a side roll, I don't know, I guess you can move that.
If it's a side roll, it would be the property of us. The part that would be, as I understand, the 8-inch irrigation piping would become back to the city once.
Well, I don't know, if you're gonna give credit for the side roll, that's one thing. If you're not, I mean, if it's gonna stay with the city, then that's something to give him credit for, but if it's not.
I don't think it is.
As I understood it, I don't think it was going to stay. I don't know if on that exhibit, if that is, I have not looked at that. We got that exhibit rather late in the game here. What my understanding was is the piping would stay, side roll probably wouldn't. I don't know if to the extent of whatever credit the city is giving him related to the length of the lease term. So that was really all that was the consideration for the expenditure, was offering him a 10-year lease instead of a shorter term lease. So they would have the opportunity to amortize his investment.
That's your question, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? I think it's
My turn.
your turn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we send the Felix Farm lease to the full city council for their recommendation.
I have a motion and a second on the Felix Farm lease, sending full council for approval. The lease being city's property to adopt. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. There being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is Alameda Flats. And Todd, you get to go again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, so Alameda Flats, Kevin Ingers asked me if I could please bring this to you guys. I have a gentleman here, Mr. Crozier. So in June of 2022, Mr. Crozier, owner of Tierra Realty Trust LLC, started discussions with the Community Development Department about various possibilities in land that the city had available for affordable housing. After some discussion on different sites, we were looking at the old Yucca Center site of 2.41 acres. The estimated market rate right now on that property, not having an appraisal done in the last 3 years, and this all developed relatively quickly because we had one site selected and then that site was no good, so we switched to another, so there's no time to call for another appraisal to get this in front of you guys today. But the estimated market rate of that land by pulling comps of other blank land similar in the area is about $40,000 for that parcel. The city did spend demolition and relocation money back when they demolished the Yucca Center and had the playground equipment moved. That was to the tune of $101,611.32. And so here to make the presentation on Alameda Flats, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Stephen Crozier.
Thank you for having me, Council, Chairman, committee members. I just first want to introduce myself. Again, my name is Steve Crozier and my company is Tierra Realty Trust. I formed Tierra Realty in 1997, and I've been developing affordable market rate mixed income housing throughout the state. Since 1997, I've developed over 1,000 units. And my company is a vertically integrated company in the sense that we do all the development. We can do the construction, and we also provide property management services. We're long-term owners of our communities. We don't sell our properties. And we are the property managers of our own properties. We use lots of different mechanisms to develop affordable workforce housing. It's become very challenging since the pandemic of 2020. Construction costs have increased twofold, triplefold. It's really hard to say at this point. I think they're starting to stop rising and they've plateaued. So what we like to do is participate in the communities where we develop, and we actually prefer to have the municipalities donate land or city property. The financing that we use is extremely competitive. Annually, we apply for funding, and there's typically 20 to 30 other utilizing either federal funds or city-owned property. The photograph is a community we developed in Hobbs, La Pradera. And that actually was developed in the midst of the 2008 financial crisis. And we were in the midst of construction, and everything stopped. Our construction lender stopped. It was kind of a crazy time, but we were able to secure tax credit assistance program funds of $2 million, which allowed the project to move forward. Hotel Clovis is actually owned by the city of Clovis. It's a hotel that's 9 stories, built in 1929. It was a historic building and used a variety of funds to make that work. We converted it into 60 units of affordable housing. The photograph below that is Playa Escondida and Hobbs. City of Hobbs granted $1.1 million as part of the source of funds for this project. These projects typically take, because of the layers of financing, 2.5 years if everything goes perfectly well. But I have on this timeline, I think from start to finish, it's 3 years. We're here tonight, October 27th. I'm presenting to you and then we would hopefully move forward with a resolution approving the project. The key date here is applying to the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority on January 20th, 2023. That's we submit for funding to get the majority of the funding that the project needs. That's a critical date. The application that we submit is usually 700 or 800 pages. It's very detailed. It's a voluminous application, very time consuming. So we don't really want to proceed with going through the amount of time to obviously submit the application before we know that the land component is secure. As part of the application, there's a full set of architectural drawings that we have to submit, which is expensive. Typically, to submit one of these projects, it can be anywhere from $100,000 to over $200,000 or $300,000 that we invest and risk our money before we even know we have the financing. And this just kind of runs through the dates. We submit in January to MFA, and hopefully we will be successful and get notification in May that funding was approved. October is the date for which the property would transfer to the partnership. And if all goes well, we would close the partnership and commence construction in April of 2024, and approximately 15 months of construction, and close the financing, stabilize the property in November of 2025, so approximately 3 years from now. So just to go into the mechanics of complexion of the community, again, it's workforce housing, affordable housing. We're proposing 70 units. We're proposing approximately 45 to 50 units on the city-owned property and 25 units on land that we have under contract east on Virginia, corner of Virginia and Alameda. It would be a family community, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. The affordability component is all the units, 100% of the units are affordable, meaning that they are set aside for people earning 60% of the Chavez County's area gross median income. We have to use that 60% in order to qualify for the tax credits. That's how this whole, I don't know if we need to get into detail on how the tax credits work. It's kind of complicated, but basically the tax credits are allocated to the community, and in exchange for the tax credits, we're able to sell the tax credits to an investor. We have investors, Wells Fargo is a big investor of ours, Berkshire Hathaway actually invests in our projects, and in return for their investment, they get a tax credit. It's $1 for $1 tax credit. The other important component is that we Another requirement for getting the tax credit and the funding is we have to restrict the affordability for 40 years with a recorded land use restriction agreement, which requires us to keep the community affordable for 40 years. And sometimes, usually we just, when we reach that 40-year period, we haven't quite reached that yet. On some of our projects, what we're doing is just keeping them affordable, refinancing, having, and continuing the affordability. Again, these are just conceptual drawings of what we're thinking about for the community. I personally like modern architecture. I like the Extra Convention Center building. I don't know if some people like that or not, but that's an interesting building. Fire station here nearby. I like those type of materials, use of stucco, steel, concrete, exposed concrete block. I like to use materials that aren't painted necessarily, that age gracefully over time. So, it's easier to maintain. And I think it looks better as they age. Again, this is just about the architectural style that we just discussed. We try to orient the sites to have passive solar elements and also passive solar shading elements for cooling and also heating. This is more of a cooling climate down here. We'll have a community building, community gardens, lots of playground areas for the kids to play. These are just renderings of the types of materials that we're thinking of using. As I mentioned, stucco, steel, exposed concrete. We have perforated metal screens. These units are south facing. The residents can move the screens to create shading for the unit and privacy. Again, we try to keep the architecture simple and clean, contemporary. The sustainability is another big important component of what I like to do. All of our projects are LEED certified. Before COVID, we were able to reach LEED Platinum. I think we can reach LEED Gold on this community, which I'm proud of. It's pretty difficult to do, but I think we should be able to achieve that. Again, we like to use community gardens, fruit trees. We like to actually use a gravel system for the parking areas. We leave the driveway aisles paved, but we like the parking system, parking areas to be gravel. It's a gravel paved system that goes into a kind of like an egg crate underground system, and it allows the water to the rainwater percolate into the aquifer and not run off into stormwater system. It also keeps the community cooler. You have too much paving, you get that heat island effect. We like to provide service enrichments to our residents, all of our communities. We offer weekly tutoring for kids, job training, we have gardening classes, financial literacy training. Our goal is this is rental housing. We try to get people to move from rental to home ownership. That's one of our goals. We also have a health and nutrition training. And this just goes into the financials of the proposed community. Approximately $17.5 million total development cost. Tax credits, you can see, are the largest component, 13.5 million. Permanent loans, 3.1. Home funds, which is a grant from the Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority. And my deferred developer fee, we're deferring a portion of the developer fee to make the project work. Typically, we don't do that, but with construction costs the way they are, industry standard now. It's the only way to make the numbers work. And this is just some of the details. I don't know how much detail we want to go into, but the investor equity, so we sell the credits that we received for about 84 cents on the dollar. Before COVID and before Donald Trump's tax credits, the price of the credits were close to 95 to 90 cents. The higher the credit amount, the more equity we can raise. And these are just examples of communities that I developed. This one is in Alamogordo. It's a senior community. This community is in Taos. That was my original project that I did, and we refinanced it a couple of years ago and added 26 more units. Originally it was 44 units, and we totally rehabbed it and gutted it, and basically redid the entire project. Upper left is Playa Escondido and Hobbs. That's all of Playa Escondido. This is the community buildings that we developed. There's fitness equipment, the leasing office. We have a playground in the back, and we also have in this community we have a daycare provider that provides daycare to all of our residents free of charge. Hotel Clovis. Again, this building was vacant for 30 years. This is the examples for the lobby that we renovated. I wish I had a before and after picture. That was a very difficult project, to say the least. This is in Hobbs. 60 units of family. Again, we use stucco, steel, corrugated steel, stucco. We use some wood. That's actually a reclaimed Spanish oak. One of the communities that I think has turned out really nicely. This is Wilshire Gardens here in Roswell. That's it. That's it. Questions? Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from community members? Councilor President.
I'm going to ask a stupid question. Why not outright buy the property?
Again, it's the mechanism that Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority has in terms of scoring. If the city donates land or city property, we're given points for that. So it makes the project more competitive. And it's basically the projects with the highest scoring get funded. Again, it's extremely competitive. The other reason is it helps with the overall cost of the project. It lowers the cost of the project. Land is typically a pretty expensive component. So just overall, it makes the project source at least standpoint work better, and it scores a lot better through Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority's scoring criteria.
Are the rental amounts the same in all your projects, or are they different based on where they're?
Yeah, it's just based on the county's area gross median income. So for instance, rents in Santa Fe would be higher than they are in Roswell. So I think the rents that we have.
It showed 650,
Yeah.
50, 750, I think it was.
Right, and so.
1, 2, and 3.
And so, yeah, the rents are based on what the incomes are for the area. So in Santa Fe, workforce housing is, I think a 3-bedroom is now, I think like $1,500 or $1,600 a month. Or 3-bedroom unit, almost twice as much.
These are not aimed at low income, right? It's just affordable in general.
It's targeted, I mean, the typical person or family that will live here is, we have a lot of single moms that work. We have families, and people are earning anywhere from $10 to $20 an hour. So people that work in restaurants, banks, bank tellers, Walmart. You know, it's workforce housing, affordable housing is a really important component of any community in terms of providing quality housing, maybe attracting more employers, you know, that can come to the area if there's housing for their employees to live in. That's quality and well maintained, and it's an important asset, I think, for any community.
And the reason I'm asking is because I just saw the statistic for Roswell. It says that Roswell has 21% or 21% of the population that are below the poverty line. And so when you look at that 21%, that's a pretty high percentage. And even at $650,
But we do have some units that are so it's a range. Okay, we have the highest units are 60%, and then we have that drop, and it goes to 50, 40, and then 30%. So the 30% person would be at that poverty level.
okay. Okay, thank you.
Tell me about your Wilshire project here in Roswell and success that you had with that. Is that also falling under this same type of
It is.
rental program?
Yeah.
It's cost.
Actually, it's 90 units. It's senior. And it's mixed.
It's senior is what it is.
Yeah, it's senior, and it's actually mixed income. We have market rate and affordable units in there. We have 15 market rate units, and it's been the best producing property that we have in my portfolio. It's been incredible.
Stays fully rented.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, our across our entire portfolio, we're 100% occupied. And through COVID, I was honestly really concerned about the fact that we couldn't evict people and what would happen. I mean, I was pretty scared. It's been you know, an incredible experience because we have not had to evict anyone. And it just goes to show you that the human element where, you know, when even if you didn't have the right to evict someone, people paid their rent, and they paid it on time. There were a couple people, but it was amazing. So yeah, our occupancy is high. It's anywhere from 98 to 100%. Obviously, we have turnover, but yeah, these communities do very well.
Yeah, I've been by that property several times. It's a nice looking property. You've been well maintained, that property, and it's I believe, a nice addition to the community.
Thank you. I mean,
what you've done.
Yeah, I drove through it. I hadn't seen it in about 6 months, and it's time for us to, there's some stuff of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. And, you know, with the drought that we've had, there's, you know, trees haven't really matured the way I hoped. So, you know, there's some things that we need to do there, but overall, yeah, I think it's, I've been happy with the way it's been maintained. We have, you know, it's the people that work for us. As you know, you talked about employees earlier, and that's the whole key. You know, you have to have good people. And we've had the same maintenance person there for 15 years. And it's just incredible.
You have on-site property manager.
Yeah, I should say that. Typically, we have for Wilshire, we have a full-time community manager and a full-time maintenance person. And we have actually an apartment. Originally, we thought that people would want to live on site. And we actually have an apartment above our community center, but it's just, we found that the on-site staff needs to have that separation.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it's worked over time.
Okay. Unfortunately, Mr. Mavers is not here today, but I would have some questions of him as to, has the city looked at other potential uses for this property? It's been sitting vacant since the yucca was removed. And what other items were, so Councilor Qualification?
They have, and they've had, if I remember correctly, there were like 3 or 4 meetings with the neighborhood and trying to get ideas of, they talked about putting a community garden. They talked about putting sports fields or some sort. They talked about, you remember, Judy?
I think there was some tiny home development that they were talking about. I don't know how far that went.
Yeah, and so there were, I think, at least 2 RFPs that I could find that went out, that went through the whole process for development, and nothing ever came of any of it. I don't know if the proposals that were submitted weren't adequate, but it did, from what I looked in and researched on this, couldn't find anything that made it to the next level in development. And that was back in 2019, I want to say 2018, 2019.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
My question would be at this point in time, and not to him, but to the city in general, is are we going to get some input from the neighborhoods that will be surrounding this project? Just like we did with the the Chisholm Park. You know, we incorporated, or we made a meeting and brought all the neighbors that came out and gave their opinion as to.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we have done that or not, and I'm sure that we haven't, other than the forums that we had previous to this.
I don't believe anything's been done. This is the first pass of what I believe has been done. I don't even know whether the zoning is correct over there.
Yes.
For multi-family, it is.
The zoning is R3.
Zonings are in place for that, and whether we should have public input. This would be a nice addition to fill up that vacant property there, but.
Mr. Chair, I've had several constituents ask when we're going to do something with it.
You're not the only one.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. I have an individual who's expressed interest in the property. I don't know whether it would be for apartments there. You know, across the street from this, there was a house there on, it was right next to Cofiers by Vargas. Anybody who's been around here very long, if you remember Henry Vargas. That's where he had a shop there. And on the corner, on this property, there's Garbs and Tunes over here on one corner. Then there's a 4-way stop. And then there's a house and then a vacant house there, and that vacant house caught on fire.
I remember that.
And when it caught on fire, the water mains broke and had a couple water mains issues when they started the thing, when they shut off the trucks, there were some water mains that broke over there and they had a pretty big mess. Some of the utilities over there in pretty bad shape. And I do have a gentleman who's expressed an interest in the property to buy it. Now, we might be looking for more commercial use than, I don't know how commercial use would go into where it was zoned as a school. But so there's some big.
You need a zone change.
It would need a zoning change because
that's residential.
It's residential there. It would require a zoning change.
The business is in that area, so that's why they wanted,
A block over, or half a block over.
So they were interested in it. So it would help. It'd help alleviate all the, well, there were, several shopping carts were on there upside down, and the cooler and all kinds of stuff stayed on there for 3 or 4 months. And were an awful lot of people that dropped trash there, and just left, stayed there, for a long time. So, that's fine. This might be a better deal. The other might be a better deal. I don't know. I do know they have an interest in it.
Councilor Arnold?
Yeah, so I don't have a propensity to support giving away our property for free, but I believe in a project like this that is kind of statewide, community-based. Sometimes you actually have to have some skin in the game to create solutions to our housing problem. So I think we could sit here and try to wait for it to be sold, but I think we would be waiting for another good minute. We have a good opportunity here. Todd, can you actually kind of advise me on, do you happen to know what our housing issues are like here in the city? I mean, I have an idea.
Okay, so in our property portfolio, we have about 96 blank parcels of property that range from 50 by 100 lots up to, I think our biggest piece is around 65 or 70 acres of land. Since 2020, since I started in the property department, I've had 3 interest calls. One from a gentleman that was wanting metal detect on the land. And 2 was one of the businessmen that's across the street on the other side of Richardson wanted that property for extended parking and storage. And so no, because I was just told no when the interest call came in. I had asked about it and I was told, no, we don't want a parking lot there. We don't want, commercial storage buildings right in the middle of a community. It doesn't make sense. So, and then Mr. Crozier has been the.
So there's potential for tax revenue by infill on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Because, the city, with a project like this, the city will, obviously you're going to hook up water back to the site, sewer back to the site. It's going to generate GRT back for the city. And in the 2.5 years I've been here, like I said, we've had 3 interest calls.
The real estate taxes too. I think the real estate taxes on Share Gardens, granted it's larger, but I think it's close to 30,000 a year.
Your GRT on this will be in excess of 400,000, just for the city's portion.
Yeah, but the GRT in this is probably $800,000.
Right, the city's portion is probably in excess of 400,000, the GRT on this project, so. And so.
Wilshire's a decade old.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know this gentleman, but I have witnessed the same project in Alamogordo.
Yeah.
And it's a very nice property. It's hard to get into because I think it's pretty well, but very well maintained, attractive part. It really helps spruce up that corner area where they located. But I just wanted to mention that I've witnessed it myself personally, and it's a very nice, well-run and operated institution.
Good. Council.
Question for you on the date. You said there's going to be free daycare at this location?
We would need to find a provider. But I haven't discussed it with the operator in Hobbs, but I would think that they'd be interested. They're wonderful.
Do you have after hours daycare? Because a lot of those people that make low income, like you were saying, they work.
They do. They do.
And then second question, more concrete, is how, like Ms. Arnold said, how do you avoid the anti-donation clause? I mean, how does the city give the property away?
It's in exchange for the housing. So he's going to agree to certain types of houses. So we can't, part of the low income housing thing is people won't build it. Right. So that's how it fits in. And the property development plan that we would work out together is a contract. So I wouldn't say the property is free, especially considering the tax revenue. And this is something, this is it's novel to us because I haven't been here a while. This is a commonplace transaction to get this type of housing.
Yeah, there's a horrible, I forget what it's called, but there's an actual act that was passed in the state that allows, if the city, which you do have an affordable housing plan, the city can donate land for affordable housing. So it is allowed under the anti-donation law.
Mr. Mayor.
I'd probably yield to Mr. Hitchcock, but I'm in Las Cruces. I think in Las Cruces in Doña Ana County that we have some properties that we've financed that were donated and low income like housings and things that.
And tiny houses and.
Tiny house, yeah.
I can't think of a better way to help lower income individuals that need that kind of support. And it still is going to benefit the city.
And if you look at neighborhood stabilization as well, from what I understand on it, when you build something like this in a blank area, what happens is everybody in that immediate area feels the need to elevate. You know, if you buy the ugliest house on the street and you fix it, all that keeping up to the Joneses effect does happen, and they happen very slowly. But I can see it on the street where I live. 15 years ago, there were 7 houses that were in desperate need of repair. I was the first one to buy the ugliest house on the street, fix it, and that was the first 15 years. One left, and they're rounding third on that one. So it does happen. And all of that generates extra DRT for the city as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councilor Besson.
Yeah, a question for, I forgot your name. Are these type of housing, do they accept HUD renters?
Yeah. Section 8 vouchers are allowed. It's not project based, but if the tenant, prospective resident has a Section 8 voucher.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Kunkel.
Mr. Crozier doesn't remember me, I'm sure. But, had to call him years ago on the project of Todd. To get the dirt sale on it. And I think the city of Austin had donated. So there really wasn't a sale. But he took the time, it's pretty soft spoken, but he took the time to provide that info to me as an appraiser. And that says something about on the good side.
Yeah.
I do remember.
Well,
Trying to remember.
I will not make my editorial comment about that.
Oh, come on, Mr. Chairman. Don't let him off the hook.
I just look at these projects and go, what a great need. The city obviously has a need for something to this nature, large to affordable housing, because you look at the housing costs today and there is nothing available, shall I say, in this market. We've seen that apartments over there on Sunset that have just disappeared because of being condemned or whatever they are. And those people just got dispersed. I don't know where they got dispersed to, but it was not good when that thing went away. And a project like this, I see brings great value to our community. And so if there's any other comments, I'd be looking for a motion.
Just to answer Ms. Arnold, we could drop 500 houses on the ground tomorrow.
And still not have.
Still not have enough housing.
Especially affordable housing.
Especially affordable housing.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think you said we're what, 20-some%?
21% is what I read.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a chronic need throughout the state, throughout the country, honestly, for affordable housing.
These, and you've done a senior housing project with your Wilshire, so.
Yeah.
And my personal opinion, that demand is just going to get larger as the population ages and where we're at. So, any other comments from anyone?
Ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that, what is it I'm moving here? We need to advance this project. And I think there's still some distance to be traveled.
Yes.
Based on the comments. I don't see, does it need to go to the city council?
That's what he's asking.
Resolution.
It has to be a resolution.
We have to adopt a resolution that.
Okay,
work with.
then let's forward a resolution to the full city council at our next meeting.
I'll second.
Discussion, Mr. Mayor.
That wouldn't preclude the other people who might be interested from discussion. I mean, I don't know if whoever told those other people that, that we weren't interested in whatever they were doing there, wanted to put there. I don't know who has that authority, if that was Mr. Mavers or who, but
I
I
don't,
don't think that should be a decision that is made.
I don't think this precludes anyone. All this is saying is that we're going to work with, on this project to advance it forward. We're not approving the project at this
Right.
point in time. All we're doing is advancing it down the field to help him meet his timeline here. Hopefully we can get to a definitive agreement and get this thing working forward. So,
But could I make this, sorry to interrupt the motion. If this committee would instruct the legal department to draft a resolution and have planning department do some community outreach, I think that'd be a good way to.
that'd be a big step in advancing us
Right
ahead.
direction.
Is that the instruction?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
P&Z, I think this thing is already approved for residential
There'd be a new.
Well, there's
Yeah.
lots of steps that's
we
got.
got to do a lot of things to get there. This is just, this is just a start.
Yeah.
To get the ball rolling.
To get us a submission to MFA for funding.
You know, Mr. Chairman, this reminds me, we got a bird in the hand, so to speak, and we got some other birds that may be in the bush.
Yeah.
One of the worst deals I ever made on a $150,000 deal is I got hung up over $1,000
No.
and I lost the deal.
So Councilor Wells,
A matter of just clarification, the motion is to send it to full council and to take action whether to approve the project or not,
I don't believe we're approving the project.
No, we're just approving it to,
just to have a discussion.
yeah, and proceed, I guess. And still have time to do your neighborhood meeting if that's what we decide to do. And this is just the first step.
Yes.
Because we've got hurdles to go through if we're going to actually donate the property and all that stuff.
Right.
On the state side, we've got other groups that are involved with building and stuff in the city that's got to look at this. This is the first, and I look at it as a baby step.
Yeah, it's all it is. It's all we're doing here is just saying, we're agreeable to look at this and move this thing ahead so they can get start the approval.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, just starting the approval process because this thing won't get built until 25. So,
But the thing is that if you approve it next month, at the council, that will tie up that property. Regardless of what.
I don't think that's not what we're doing with this resolution. We're not going to tie this property up.
Well, we need site control in order to submit to the Mexican Mortgage Finance Authority in January. That's one of the requirements.
That's pretty firm.
I don't think we can do that.
I think that's pretty firm.
Lawfully, you could, yes. It's a question of your comfort with the timing. What I was going to suggest is and give instruction that the council's has resolution and giving him enough time to work on it. But it's definitely something the whole council needs to agree on. We're going to get on site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I think we need to move it forward. At whatever level is appropriate. This is kind of a different kind of deal. I know you've done it in other communities, but it's the first one for us that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
We've got some
We can have those discussions at
old guard here
at a later time, but we can have those discussions. But at least let's get it kicked down the road. That's all.
Well, and my concern is if the mayor says that there's an individual that is interested, there may be others that may be interested.
Well,
I don't know whether there are or not, but.
I'm tired of waiting on the others though.
Yeah, I mean, it's been
put out. RFP twice, he said.
Yeah.
And nothing's happened and it's been sitting vacant all this time. And I've driven by there and seen beds and couches and everything thrown on the property.
Yeah.
And it's just time to move, I think.
We do have a bank.
For city staff telling people they're not interested, then what the hell's that?
I don't know.
That's what he just said happened. I mean, that's what he said. They told him that they weren't interested.
They just, when I say they, I can clarify, it was the mayor and the city manager and the community development director was like, does not did not seem like a good project. So when I relayed the information back to the person that was interested, I said, they said it would be a good project, but we can still move this forward if you are interested and let the powers that be make the decision on that. The decision then was made, no, I'm not interested in it because for any other reason other than I want to put commercial storage buildings and parking lot there.
That's not a lot of revenue.
That's not a good place for that kind of,
And knowing that there were public forums in the past that said we'd like to see it as a playground or housing or community garden or something else, none of the information I could find said people in that neighborhood would be comfortable with parking lot and commercial buildings right there in that area, so.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I think if you have someone in our community who employs probably 75 or 100 people, I think you should pay them some indifference if they care enough to be in Roswell. That if they have, if there's a property that has been derelict for a number of years and they decide they want to improve that area and the rest of their area around their business, I think you probably ought to consider that. I just think that's common courtesy to an existing business.
Well, I just will tell you that person needs to step up.
Right.
Yeah.
Is what I
We
want.
already met the city people once and was turned down.
Well, I don't think that's a call. They need to be bringing those proposals forward and not being shut down by someone at a different level. That needs to come forward to us. And so, but I look at this project here, $400,000 to the city in additional gross receipts tax. And what is the highest, and using something that Mr. Kunkel would always probably use when he's doing his appraisals, highest and best use. And are we getting the highest and best use out of this property? And so that's what I look at. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Mayor, but if that person that's interested, they need to come to the table and start talking about it ASAP, because I want to move this thing forward for the next level.
Here.
So, and I think that's what, we've got a motion on and a second for that. And so.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair? I'm sorry, you guys don't really want me here. We typically sell property by ordinance. Would this kind of situation also require an ordinance?
This is not a sale.
This would be
No, but
it would
I mean, in essence, it's the same thing if you want to say that we're
be
getting
done through development.
something for it, but I mean, do have, if we were to get rid of city property, does it not have to be done by ordinance?
It would follow the same notice period for as ordinance, yes. But it'd be, my understanding, and Josh just left to double check with me, but yeah, so I
mean,
think
there's some period of time that has to happen, and when's the MFA? January.
Gotta be quick.
We don't have a lot of time.
No.
And we would need a resolution adopted by the governing body.
Yeah. That was one of the requirements.
Site control. Those are really the two things that we need.
I don't think anybody's trying to cut corners. We may be a little faster than we're comfortable with.
Well, I think that's fine. I'm not sure. Maybe it doesn't have to be done by
Well, that's his job to figure out.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it.
traditionally it is absolutely done by ordinance. Development plans do have property transfers. Those are not always done by ordinance.
So we would want it adopted, a resolution adopted by the governing body to make sure that, political parties, sure.
You have that document.
Absolutely. Yeah, an MFA would want that change.
I mean, this isn't his first project in the state of New Mexico, so.
It's not.
Not his first. It's our first. Well, I've seen the project at Hobbs.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with the one at Clovis. I haven't been there since you completed it, but I remember when all that got started. And so I'm not concerned anybody's gonna misstep on this.
I just want to make sure you go through the process.
We've
Ms.
consulted.
Stubbs, we'll take.
Yeah, we're
due
gonna look at the
diligence on
affordable
your-
housing act. We're both pretty sure it's by resolution. But
I was just asking.
It is fact.
yeah, the Affordable Housing Act is by resolution.
Yeah.
And then the community than the development contract would be.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Those all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Okay. Item number 5, no longer on the agenda. So now we have item number 6, which is an ordinance amending the city's administrative code. They're recommending to authorize, advertise for a public hearing.
And Mr. Chair, I know we've been here for an hour and 45. I didn't know if anybody wanted to take a quick break.
We can take a break if we wish. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break, get this over with.
5-minute break, so we'll cut it back to 15.
10.
Wishful thinking on your part.
Yeah, an hour, and I didn't realize we were already in.
Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to have that gentleman for his express interest in the property.
Yeah.
Oh, she got her.
Yeah. Again, I'm not.
This is our first pass. Yeah. Look, it's going to get out of here.
He's bought a number of properties.
Yes.
That's where the old lunch out.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just following directions from.
You know, you've got 75.
Maybe that's working.
If you look, he's on corner where he is, he lives across the street.
So maybe.
All the way across the street. He owns the warehouse on this side. He owns the house over here.
Can I ask you?
He owns on this side. You on the Hollywood Road, but hey, what happened? It would allow them to straighten out that river behind.
Yeah, you told me about that.
It's a Hondo River. That's the smallest point we have. Flooding conditions. That's where it's going to.
This is what we did recommend.
That's why there's a curve like this, a curve like this. And we widen that. It's trade for that. It covers that channel. So it's wide enough where you could. And also, we're about right down the 3-point motion.
Yeah, there you go.
I just want to take care of it. I just want to take whatever direction.
I don't see rules.
Do you know if he had submitted in the RFP now, the two other RFPs, the one after I just, okay. So I'll find out.
No, actually, the other one, I'm pretty small.
Let me find it here.
I'm building over. You know, it's problem.
I believe.
All right, I'll reach out to them.
You don't want to lose.
That's both I do.
That's like, it's only like this.
Yeah.
You know, I can take changes out and fix it. All had a list. They get collaborated, nobody will fix my piece. So we don't have to burn it. He's bought all the properties there. And he goes, you know, to him, it's worth something that we have over there. With all the structure, everybody's in there, he's got all the security in one place. Try to run the central employees out of that thing, that's smart. So I can see that it works. Workers go. When you do 2 hours, already. You know, there's nobody, you know, the other lots.
Focus on what you're doing. Radio test. I just wanted to make it, I just wanted to bring some clarity on. Given.
But I knew better than that. So, all right, that's no problem. Yeah, this is working, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Started. The city of Harlem, they put down the playground.
And the extended version of the reasoning that was given is, you know, we're gonna sold that off for that type of use and change the zoning on that area. We're slaughtering the sheep. One time and be done with it, we're gonna receive a little bit of tax revenue. That's because, you know, there's side and owned privately, so somebody will be paying taxes on it. But we wouldn't get near the money back on that type of project as we would if we put housing back on that. We want it. Here too. Like I said, I'll reach out to you.
You know, we get everything, take some of that out on the earth, it goes like this, and then it goes like this, left out the middle. That box is right in there. They want to see our already. But these are ready to come in and make ready for big stuff. Solve the drainage problem. Because if that flood there, it's just the flood all went. All right. And if you look at all those houses, there on the side of the club, all those little houses, first two, I wonder, you know, I mean.
Water gets deep over there too.
I know it does. Whoever puts them out, all I had to tear them up and fill them up.
There are a couple of friends.
Well, the chairman said 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whenever he gets back to the seat, we're here.
Get my sign stuff done.
There he is. Just lost one of your members. Said, where's the chairman that you took off?
I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Yeah, we'll see.
You got it. All right.
Okay, we'll be back in session.
Okay.
Councilor Arnold.
She's right down the hall. I don't think she left the building, Mr. Chairman.
Would you like me to wait, Mr. Chairman?
Well, I would because she worked on this project.
Yeah, her name's on it.
Can I just say one thing?
You can say whatever you
One
like.
thing just about that property over there, the tightest point in the Hondo River.
Oh, I know.
Right there. And if you don't expand that whenever you put something there, it's gonna flood too. Because that's the choke point for the whole Hondo River.
Oh,
Right there behind
I got it.
building.
Whenever you want to see if the Hondo's going to flood, that's where you go on your bicycle. That's how long I've been watching that corner.
Yeah, but it's going to take some engineering. There's a lot of things.
You still fit on one of them little bicycle seats about like that.
I haven't ridden a bicycle so long, I'd probably crash and burn.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee. This is a resolution to, what I would say is clarify the administrative code. The attorney, as you all are aware, the Attorney General issued a second opinion this year regarding the structure of municipalities that are unchartered and that are not home rule. Roswell is one of a group of about 12 of those in the state. These are direct quotes, and this is kind of the background as to why I structured the appointed offices of that. So first, clerk, municipal attorney, police officer, treasurer, manager are not part of the administrative service. The administrative service is the group of people that the manager manages. So through our merit system ordinance, the managers employs administrative staff. Because they aren't administrative staff, the city manager cannot fill the appointed offices position. And the appointed offices are listed. There's no restriction in the law, however, about how many appointed offices you could have. So if you wanted, what I find humor is in our actual ordinances, we call the city manager, but he's actually the street commissioner in law. So direct authority to appoint officials is vested with the council. And finally, subject to the approval of the governing body, the mayor appoints all officers and employees except those who elected office. We've done, as seen from the statement above, and through the merit system, employees have been delegated to the manager. The mayor and council have concurrent oversight over them. There's case law out there where the council has stepped in and fired employees. It's very infrequent. It's not particularly good policy, but when an extreme thing happens, that's an option. In any event, instead of doing a PowerPoint, I felt it was kind of important that that the code actually be out there so people watching can see what we're actually talking about. They understand how awful sausage making can be and never want to watch or hear me again. So the first part of the code, so a number of pages were left unchanged. This is the districts that we have, election stuff, how the council members vote. Now, the police chief was actually kind of early on. The reason this is deleted is because the police chief has simply been moved down further to be with all the other officers that are appointed. The rules of order and procedure. So these are deleted because the city council, according to law presently, should be following Robert's Rules of Order as the parliamentary procedure. However, we've adopted multiple governing body rules over the years that we in practice implement. So we're technically not in compliance with our own ordinance by using the governing body whenever they disagree with Robert's. My proposal is simply to get rid of Robert's rules as law so that the governing body has a lot more flexibility. You have your own rules of order
Correct. We have our own rules of order.
Yes, however, they aren't done by ordinance. They're
Right.
done by resolution. So there's a conflict. I think my view is that, again, Robert's rules can be very burdensome and it doesn't necessarily meet all the needs of a 10-member city council. So having your own rules of order, I think, is an improvement. And this would make us consistent with practice. Similarly, a quorum is defined by law, by state law. I didn't think it was necessary to define it. I try to avoid redundancy. I like shorter, tighter legislation whenever possible. Now, addressing the presiding officer, I thought we should be free to call Mayor Jennings whatever we feel like, so I deleted that portion. I hope you all agree. Sorry, Mayor. But this is just a tightening up. I think we've never had a decorum problem at city council, to my knowledge.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Similarly, appeals from the presiding officer, that would not only be covered by Robert's rules, which is in our own governing rules, have rules about that. So there's no reason to conflate it. Conduct at meetings, this was discussed with a couple of counselors, and we decided to go ahead and leave that as law. There shall be no disorderly conduct. It's binding on anybody within the municipal limits. So that's one thing. We haven't touched the committees. That's something that I know there's been discussion about, but I feel like that might be a different can of worms than what we want to go into. And it was beyond the scope of the initial project to come in compliance with the Attorney General's opinion. Now, as we go down, the committees have stayed the same. The one addition is that there's been a back and forth about how an item can get on the agenda that it's not through a committee. So I've thrown in that 4 counselors, the mayor may place an item before the governing body. This is something that the rules already have. This was a nice way to tighten it up and close the debate on the matter. There's no inadvertent open meeting violation, which there really wouldn't be anyway. And I mean, it's the equivalent of a committee. So if the equivalent of a full committee wants it on, it can get on.
Can I ask you a question? If we can go back to the doing away with the Robert Rules of Order.
Yes.
If our rules of order do not address a specific issue.
The way the governing body resolution is written, if nothing is addressed is specifically in our own internal rules, Robert's rules is the default.
Okay, so you really don't want to get rid of Robert Rules of Order entirely, do you?
No. I want to get rid of it as law. I want to allow the governing body to, so right now we're not, the way this is written, we can't follow the governing rules that you guys have voted to adopt as resolution because Robert's rules takes primacy.
Because the way I understand it, you're crossing out all the language pertaining to rules of order or Robert Rules of Order, I think.
So what would happen is if you adopted this ordinance language, the governing body rules of order are now the only game in town.
Which are very vague.
Well, they're vague, except that Robert's rules is also written into them.
Good.
So an example is how the consent agenda works isn't exactly how Robert's rules doesn't cover consent agenda per se, but it has an equivalent procedure. So our consent agenda rules would be compared to Robert's rules. So it would not change the practice of the council. This is a purely cleanup item in my view. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. So are there any questions about 4 counselors being able to put something on the committee agenda? Okay. Now, a lot of these, again, are just tidying up. There is an oath required under state law and an oath required under the Constitution. This language simply says we're going to take whichever oath is applicable under law, so we don't have to worry about an additional oath if the statute conflicted with them, if the statute required more than the Constitution. So this is just it's an upkeep one. Now we get to the substance here. The creation of the appointed officers. So there will be independent offices from city departments. This was something that I tried to clarify before, but offices are mentioned in the state code, as are departments in the state code talking about the manager. Manager controls departments, governing body, or the offices report to the governing body. This is very similar to how the state is structured. The Attorney General, the auditor, the Land Commission, the governor are all offices of the executive. And then the governor has departments. So they're distinguished. And this is a similar process. And that's more, at least you wouldn't use this different language if they weren't meant. A rule of statutory construction is if there's different language, you should try to interpret it differently when possible. So it makes sense to me that we have these independent offices based on the Attorney General's opinion and the structure of the municipal code. The offices that are written in here are clerk, treasurer / finance officer, police chief, auditor, and city attorney. The clerk, treasurer / finance officer, and police chief are mandatory as a matter of law. The auditor is a creation based on suggestions from counselors. And the office of city attorney is, I get you best interpreted as an if-then statement. If you have one, appointed or contract. If you don't, you don't. Now, the appointed office, so that is the independent offices, and that will also have those offices will also have appointments. The manager himself is not an office. So the appointees are actually the manager, clerk, treasurer, finance officer, police chief, city auditor, and city attorney. So we have offices, departments. The manager will get departments. The officers will have offices. The governing body may, in lieu of having an in-house office of the city attorney, contracts with outside counsel. So this usually goes with a matter of saying, I hope you really don't do it until I've paid off my student loans. But here and there it is. Of all the municipalities that are similar to us, that is without a charter and non-home rule, all of them have in-house or contract attorneys when I surveyed it a month ago. Now, appointments and term. State law requires that appointment and term for the officers, for the offices to, except for the auditor, which is being created in this legislation, to come at the first organizational meeting. So with that, we see the exception of the manager of the officer as the organizational meeting, the mayor shall set confirmation. This is it's state law. So this is just tracking the language. There's nothing inventive here. By contrast, and this is also, again, just quoting the state language. This is one of those things where I prefer tighter and would rather cite it, but I think it's important that people can easily access this one. The council fails to confirm, the mayor at the next meeting shall submit the name of another person. So that's a state law requirement. If somebody fails at the council after an appointment, their term is up. And officers shall be at will, and every appointed officer shall hold the term provided for under state law. Now, different appointed offices have different terms under state law. The auditor, the manager is indefinite. The city attorney, the clerk, and the treasurer finance officer are termed at each new council. So if the mayor chooses to not appoint, they hold through. And if the mayor chooses to appoint somebody else, that's in the council approves, that's their job, or the end of the job.
In the auditor situation.
So the auditor is covered with, there's a section for the auditor.
Okay.
But again, all officers, the auditor would be by contract. So if you want to contract with an auditor who's not at will, I left that as the prerogative of the contract of the council. Or if you wanted to insert something, that's partly why the word's up here. So if the committee would like to vote on an amendment, we can do it here easily.
Okay.
All right, the clerk. The clerk shall have the duties prescribed by law. In addition, the two and such duties shall be prescribed by the city council. The clerk does have statutory duties by law. They're buried and kind of spread out throughout the municipal code. I thought this was just a catch-all, and it also allows the council to contract with the clerk how they see fit. The clerk here, because it's an office, shall be responsible for the performance function personnel of her office. So she'll be a manager, but when we get down further, we'll see that it's any merit system hire has to still go through the manager. And we'll explain that as we get there. Similarly, licenses, this is just inserting state law. The clerk has to issue the licenses. What we do at the city usually is have something like planning, we'll sign off on everything and the clerk issues it. But this is something that, I'm sorry, I should have rewinded here. So a lot of this is language that's been lifted, or what I would say improved and combined from Clovis, Farmington, Las Cruces, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and so like this language here was lifted from Carlsbad, if I'm remembering correctly. I liked it, and in law, the worst possible thing is originality.
When I went through it, the insinuation, the way I read it, is the clerk you refer to as her.
Yes.
And then you refer to the finance as he.
Yes, and then the attorney is her. I went back.
Is there a reason?
Just to give men and women an equal. We can make it uniform. I wasn't sure what the council would prefer to have in the language. That's something I'd be happy to change if you want he, she, or sorry, he, him, or she, her. It's whatever you prefer. That's why it's mixed. In the in the first chapter of our code, there is a line that says whatever gender is, we don't care. It's just whatever's thrown in there shall be a person. I was trying to be sensitive to cultural issues. Okay. Next, the seal. This you could delete because she already does it, but the clerk keeps the seal, and without the seal, there are no ordinances. So somebody ought to keep it safe, and the clerk made sense. Deputy clerks. Now, for a city the size of Roswell, one clerk clearly is not going to be sufficient, and state law provides for an interesting thing where the mayor and council may appoint one more deputy clerks pursuant. However, the deputy clerks under 312.4 can actually be employees. So this is a limited exemption to appointment and employment. I put that in there because it's already an authority. This makes it explicit that you guys are aware of it. I highly recommend it in the future that because if the clerk gets sick, we still need somebody to seal things or to speak on behalf of the city on paperwork. And sorry, these deletions were the deletions from the sections that they were replaced. This is the clerk treasurer portion. All right. The manager. The manager must be created by ordinance. So here we are officially created. I actually looked at it. I can't find an ordinance that explicitly created the manager, except for the ordinances in the 19-teens. And they're mostly similar to what we have in our code. So there's no particular ordinance. So I'm not suggesting that there's any issue with the manager position existing, but this just makes it cleaner. So created pursuant to state law, he is the CAO as provided. That's the language that the state law uses to describe the manager. He will work in conjunction with other officials to effectuate the policies and goals of the governing body. So this is making clear that they are a team together, all the officers and the manager, who's an appointed individual. He is an officer, but not holding an office. All that work together to do what the council wants to see done. When D is an important section in that the manager consults, but when it says consult, it means he still has ultimate authority to hire people in the administrative service. So if there's going to be discipline, hiring or firing in conjunction within the appointed officer's office, he does have the final say. That's just how the merit system has to work. However, he does have to at least communicate with that officer. So but like there's only the way our merit system is structured, there's only one head honcho, that is the manager for all employees. The manager this is something I added in because for your consideration, some municipalities have ordained, I guess is the word for ordinance, have ordained departments. Others do it through resolution. Here, what I was saying is the manager needs to, or my view of how I think of a manager working or a CAO in a place like Albuquerque or Cruces or Santa Fe is they can restructure government as necessary, but having a full restructure or changing what departments exist or don't exist is something the council absolutely needs to have a say on. So what we're saying here is the manager can reorganize the departments, but it must go through the governing body first. Similarly, the deputy manager, director of departments shall be nominated by the manager for approval by the governing body. This is something that a lot of municipalities do. And finally, if approved, the deputy manager and directors will be employed through the manager. This is to make very clear, they are employees still. They can fall under merit system because they're not appointees.
So my question would be, if you have department heads.
Yes.
And the city, say the city manager determines that he needs to get rid of a department head.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have to go through governing body?
No, the way this is written, the manager could fire if he wanted to. So we could absolutely throw in hiring and firing shall be with the consent of the governing body.
So does that mean bring it to city council?
Yes.
And the city council determines whether to fire an individual or not?
Well, yeah, so that would be concurring. And so that's ultimately, or because of the nature of discipline, whether it's small or large, I'd left that out for discussion. So the way it would, right now, the way it's written here is counselor says, Mike Matthews needs to be my deputy. The manager would present. Council would vote up or down, a resounding 10 vote yes, I assume. And then he's now the deputy. But if there's going to be a firing because he falls under the merit system, it would be the manager's choice. If you would like, we can amend that very easily to say the firing would also have to go through council. But depending on if the guy gets picked up for some horrible crime, you just want to fire immediately. You don't want to wait till the next council meeting.
I believe we leave that on the merit program. That's where it lies.
Yeah, so this is just a way to guarantee the council has more say in the top administrative offices that interact. Well, for example, let's talk planning. The planning director can kill licenses and can make zoning change, and it has a lot to do with the zoning rules. I think it's important that the council have a formal relationship with that type of individual before he gets hired. And a number of municipalities do something similar.
So the individuals, and I'm trying to get it clear in my mind, the individuals that are hired right now, will say like department heads. They're not, where they're in the merit system. But I don't believe we have a process, do we? To get rid of an individual?
If we get rid of
Yeah.
Or department head.
I mean, anybody that is in the merit system.
Well, absolutely. We've gotten rid of several here recently.
But I don't recall it coming to city council.
Oh, not coming to city.
It would not come to city council to fire.
Because that's what I'm.
No, sorry, this is only for hiring, not for firing. Discipline and firing are still unique to the manager. Unless there's a provision of state law that allows you to do it, but it's not in this part of the code.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. The deputy city manager, we just want to make sure that there's no doubt the deputy city manager may exercise the powers and duties granted to the manager in his absence or disability. This is just tightening up. We want to make it clear who's number two. The city attorney. So the city attorney needs to be a New Mexico licensed attorney. This is consistent in all municipalities surveyed. And I put in, and this is a total discussion item, the number of years of practice. 6 years is what's required to be a judge in the District Court of New Mexico, which is by code. I figured if you're dumb enough to become a judge, why not be dumb enough to become a city attorney?
But you've already been a judge.
And that was in the territory. It was a very different time. So I don't, if this is something that, like I said, it was chosen because that is the district court judge. If you guys have other thoughts, I am 100% on board with whatever you want. But if not, I'll keep going. Now, the city attorney language is kind of broad because depending on the municipality, the city attorney can do all sorts of things. Fundamentally, though, what really the core of this, there's a lot of language, but draft ordinances, whatever he's asked to do, he can do. The line that really is important here, though, is here, that perform any duties that are required by the governing body and customary practice of law. So that covers the gamut. And then again, the city attorney, and the other offices is responsible for the people. However, assistant city attorneys, deputy city attorneys would be the merit, hired through the merit system.
Okay.
Is there any questions on the city attorney? So now we have the treasurer/finance officer. To let you know, under state law, the treasurer is the finance officer for the city. It's located in two different parts of the municipal code, which is why people might forget that. If the city wants to, the finance officer may be separated from the office of the treasurer through ordinance. So if you guys would like to pursue that track, let me know and we can break it up into its own ordinance.
Yeah, I just make a comment at this point in time that I don't think CPA is an absolute definite requirement for that position.
Yes, it is. Sure. Let me talk about the qualifications. Again, anything you guys, I was told to put in qualifications. Sure. This is what's seen within this again. So the treasurer shall have a minimum of either a bachelor's in accounting, be a CPA, or hold an advanced degree in accounting or finance related field. It's one of those three. So if you have a bachelor's in accounting, I think that's not saying a CPA might be restricted.
I was just curious on couldn't you put experience in there?
Yes. They'll have 10 years of previous work in accounting, finance, or related fields. So this is.
And finance, so that is a requirement. They don't have.
Yes.
They don't have to have accountant's degree or a CPA if they've had 10 other years.
No, it takes both of them.
It takes both.
It takes both. So we want somebody with at least a bachelor's in accounting, a CPA, or an advanced degree in accounting or related. So an MBA, in my vision, would be adequate, especially if they focused on finance. Would be fine. And then the 10 years is to get somebody who's firmly mid-career. Anticipating a 30-year career life cycle for somebody who does accounting or related work. And again, this is, I'm happy to take your direction on this in any way at all. This seemed like I was trying to balance expertise with the ability to recruit.
Why did you, Mr. Chairman, why would it be different for this individual that needs 10 years experience versus an attorney that needs 6?
So the attorney was, I just tried to get the judge staff.
Well, you're the guy that drafted this, correct?
Yeah.
I'm just asking what.
Right. So so there was no statutory guidance for treasurers. So that's why I said, a mid-career, I don't want somebody, or I shouldn't say I don't, policy wise, I don't know that it's wise to have somebody with a year experience as an accounting degree being the chief financial officer of the city. So again, I take no pride in ownership on this. What you guys want to see, I want to make sure I can put in.
Yeah, these are things we'll go through this right now and then we can decide where we're going to go with this after.
And there's no need to decide this tonight.
Whatever it is, it needs to be consistent, in my opinion.
But no, that's, you're right. But yeah, we can absolutely amend that. Mr. Chair, were you thinking of doing amendments after the whole?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I just,
so
over there, I thought I'd ask that question.
No problem.
So this was just to, and this could be edited to say the treasurer / financial officer shall do what's required by law and by the council. I just wanted to show you what, and that's a quick amendment. This is all the things that state law requires that they do pretty much. And it's a lot. But in any case, they render the accounts, they keep the accounts, they sign for the accounts, they keep the funds safe. Then that's part B. And then part C is the treasurer reports to the finance committee as often as required of a full and detailed accounting of all receipts and expenditures. This is already the practice. We're just putting into code. Finally, I get the treasurer is responsible for their office. So the Department of Finance falls under the treasurer unless the city council ordains otherwise. And then this section here for bond, state law requires a bond. It can't be more than 50,000. So what I've just put here is any bond that the council thinks is, there must be one. If it's $1, sure. But state law says it, so that's why it's. Okay, Chief of Police. Again, this was a number that I was tasked with, and I said 10 years having worked with police most of my legal career, a 10-year cop still isn't very high up the ranks often. So 15 years definitely seemed more appropriate. The Chief of Police is responsible for executing the duties described under state law. So he's kind of the co-chief law enforcement of the officer along with the mayor. The only power the mayor has as the police chief doesn't is to put down riots, which I hope there's no riots, but I would look forward to seeing Mayor Jennings put them down. And the police chief is responsible for its functions. Again, this was, the police chief's duties could have been very long. I again like to keep it short, and I think we all have an idea of what a police chief does. Bond, the police chief also is required by law to have a bond. This is different language that I wanted you to have an option between the two while we were in discussion. Security bond, it can be $1. There's no limit on the police chief's bond. So if for some reason you were worried about a police chief running amok, you can get a $10 million bond from him. But the city does pay for tradition. Finally, the city auditor, and I apologize. So when we were talking about the city auditor, there were it was a lot of auditing in the business sense, but it also had flavors of what we call an inspector general of government. So there are only 2 cities that have full-time auditor / inspector generals. That's Cruces and Albuquerque. Cruces had they wrote the ordinance and then didn't hire anyone for 3 years, but their ordinance was very nice. Albuquerque's inspector general has definitely ended prominent people's careers. And so it's a powerful position that we need to treat carefully, but it can be very useful to the governing body. And as city legal, I love the idea because there's some things that I will be conflicted on. So having another person with either a legal or auditing background is really helpful for the city. And I shouldn't say I should say that the city attorney is confident. You guys can get rid of me whenever you want. Please don't. All right, so for this, the auditor has language in here that could also be inserted for the manager. As you might be aware, the manager by custom has these criteria that state law requires. So there's always a search or some form of headhunting for a manager. When it comes to the auditor, I believe a similar procedure is best, simply because the auditor needs to be someone beyond reproach. Right? The auditor, a good auditor has the power to take down an elected official, an appointed official, or any employee or any contractor. Right? And that is it's a great thing if a city can afford it, it's a wonderful thing to have. In any case, the recommendation shall be based on the candidate's integrity, demonstrated ability in accounting, auditing, financial analysis, law management, system analysis. It's a lot of things here that have to do with anything that could go wrong with a municipality. Right? Is there embezzlement? We want financial analysis. Is it illegal spending? Well, then we want a lawyer. And they don't have to have all of it, but some type of average of stuff. These are what we want considered. This is what the mayor, when making an appointment, would present to the council as what he looked at. Qualifications. This was pulled from Cruces. They went with 7 years. I thought that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. We can make it 6 like the lawyer. We can make it 15 like the police chief. 7 again was simply because another city had landed on it. And they have since been able to find an auditor. So there will be a combination, of the following fields. This is broad. We can tighten it up as you see fit or leave it broad. But federal, state, or local law enforcement officials, former judges, attorneys with experience in fraud, mismanagement, or corruption, which I guess is redundant for some attorneys. An inspector general would also meet the criteria. CPAs could be good, or internal auditors. So there's different fields we can pull in from depending on what flavor you want the auditor to have. Again, I think the governing body's discretion and the mayor's discretion are important. And so long as we can get somebody who has a good backbone and some good experience in one of these fields, I think the city will be better served. This was a criteria that both Cruces and Albuquerque had something similar. And I think it's the ability to work with local law enforcement agencies. Auditors will oftentimes make criminal referrals. That's partly why they exist. And I like the idea that there should be, I like the idea that the mayor would provide an explanation to their law enforcement knowledge or ability to work with law enforcement. Doesn't mean that they're lawyers, of course, but that they have some experience with prosecution generically. And then finally, a bachelor's degree, master's preferred. A master's is aspirational. You don't have to have a master's degree to be a great auditor. All right, now the duties. There are a few here. These were pulled from between Cruces and Albuquerque. The ones that I like the best, the ones that were not conflicting with each other. So auditor will investigate either by request or self-initiated. The self-initiation language I think is very important. Because if it's only by request, the auditor might be twiddling their thumbs for a couple of months if people stay quiet. We want them to turn rocks over. Now, their jurisdiction is broad. Elected and appointed employees, municipal agencies, and instrumentalities, and importantly to me, contractors and subcontractors. If we think we're getting hosed by a contractor, it's very hard for me to go, like a city attorney, to go like, show me your receipts. The auditor, when we go down, will have subpoena power. And with subpoena power, well, it's a bit of a bite. The auditor will be authorized to audit, inspect, evaluate, investigate activities, records, and individuals with contracts and procurements undertaken by the city or any other function. So those sound the same, but it's a catch-all. The city attorney's job here is to advise the auditor, but I wanted to explicitly put in that if there's an unwaivable contract under the rules of professional procedure, the auditor goes out and gets his own lawyer. You guys would have to fund that through however you fund the department. But like I say, you can't have the city attorney advising the auditor when the city attorney's the target.
So can I ask a question? If the auditor is investigating an employee, whether it's top rank or lower rank, who does he make the recommendation to, the findings?
The council.
And the council does what?
Well, it depends on what the finding is. So if it is an employee issue, then the council recommends the manager that you get on it. If it is a contractor issue, the council should tell the attorney to get into litigation. If it's a criminal issue, typically auditors by their own professional rules of conduct have to refer it criminally. So you guys can take action based upon the reports, and it's also just so you guys know. The auditor is there to let you know when things are going wrong. And it doesn't necessarily mean criminal. It could be a process analysis. But I mean, by way of example, something the city does right now that to me is a little curious is we drug test every employee. That's not a bad thing. And personally, my own political leanings are, well, you might know them, you might not. However, as a city, it'd be interesting to see that auditor could do an analysis saying, well, we spend $50,000 a year paying for these drug tests. We lose this type of qualified candidate. And and seeing the actual effect on work. They're almost like a management consultant in that capacity.
So how does the union contract come into play with an investigation?
Perfect. Do you mind if I skip down and answer that question? So can I ask that question in 3 subsections?
Sure.
Okay. Auditor has subpoena power. They wouldn't, if they're lawyers, they could probably get it themselves, but the office of the city attorney would be made available to execute subpoenas consistent with the rules of procedure. That's standard language. Similarly, the city manager cannot limit the scope of investigations, nor can the city attorney. The limitations on the investigations that I can suggest are that if we're already in litigation, that would fall in the city attorney's wheelhouse because the auditor can't represent the city. And if it's litigation, it's publicly known, then the council would get regular updates anyway. Similarly, if there's an active criminal investigation, the auditor is going, so if the FBI were looking at something, we'll tell the auditor to hang out until the FBI is done. We don't want conflicts with law enforcement agencies if we can avoid it. And similarly, If it violates the collective bargaining agreement, the auditor's out. That has to be negotiated by the union staff.
And who all can limit what the auditor can do? Can the mayor, can the council?
The council.
The council can, and what about the city manager?
The manager cannot touch him. No authority to limit the scope of the investigation. And the city attorney's ability is only in these specific fields such as criminal investigation and active litigation.
But the council has the power to do it, but should the mayor not have the same power if they see something going on wrong with the council?
It depends on the number of councilors.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just looking at it, you know, I mean, if you.
No, that's something we can add in. The problem is that if the mayor's the target, then we don't want the mayor to have any, we're trying to make this person as autonomous as possible. And the odds of a full council or a majority of the governing body being corrupt in such a way that they would end the investigation.
Well, it only takes 5 of those councilors.
So that's something we could consider. I get like it's in the case of Albuquerque, the auditor is given multiple mayors a lot of problems. And so in the mayor having the ability, although Albuquerque is a very strong mayor system, so since the mayor is part of the governing body, that it's different. It's something to discuss. One's not legal or illegal either way. It's a policy preference.
Yeah, but when it's 5 to 5, it only takes one of them. The next thing you know, you'll have 5 councilors over there looking for a buddy to go investigate the mayor.
And that
they got to be fair. It's got to have check and a balance between.
Right, and you could have a rogue auditor that you got to be able to have full rogue auditor. And so this needs to be tightened up as to who they report to and how they report.
So, well, let me.
And somebody needs to be able to set them in motion.
Yeah, well, that was complaints or self-initiated is what's written in. And
right, but you need to have a little, you're self-initiated, you're going down a rabbit trail that's worthless and you're spending time for nothing.
Yes.
I mean, there needs to be some form of guidance in place for this individual.
Would you, I guess how I would address that is, would you like to see that as ordinance or part of your contract? It could be by resolution. I mean, the resolution would still govern how the auditor works too.
Right. I just need to think about that.
No, and that's this is
our first pass.
Yeah, this is not easy.
But you know, on the appointment of the auditors, it's going to be by the city council or by the mayor?
Mayor with consent of council.
Yeah.
Because he's already in the first section, all officers plus the auditor and the manager.
But he's saying you're going to hire someone to audit the auditor.
Well, actually, so that's the city attorney or the manager, right? Because the 3 people are all in. It is a check and a balance between your appointed officers. We will all want a piece of each other's action.
Yeah.
Right. Good. So that's part of the idea, and if you want to talk about a couple other things, and then we can go. So this is standard, and it's up to you guys if you want to keep it. I think it's typically good because police and fire.
Your name went over the top of it. I mean, it's okay. I know you're proud, but.
So not investigate complaints under the police internal affairs division or fire.
Good.
And that's the reason that's both municipalities have, in my experience, police and fire IA are very distinct animals. And if you're doing IA, especially when it comes to constitutional violations, that's something an auditor, if he's not a lawyer, will simply have no grasp on. Now, that said, we can delete that very easily.
Can I ask a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
Could you actually have those department IAs underneath the auditor?
Yeah, absolutely. Statutorily, the police chief does have his own independent authority to do investigations of his own people, though.
Is that part of the
That's written in that.
but is there a connection between the chief
and the internal affairs.
Well, usually IA will give reports to the chief, the problem is when the chief is determining.
Well, and my kind of thought was, because to me, that, I think IA should be separated from.
Yeah.
Its own.
Right, yeah, the way we handle this, we have a contractor who
Right.
reports to the manager officially. But that's something worth considering.
Well, that's what I'm saying, they should be reporting to our auditor.
Yeah, like if that's an amendment, we have.
Yeah.
So he will not unilaterally accept complaints regarding discrimination or labor law. That's because of this pre-litigation. It should go to HR and then legal. An example that I was speaking with Mr. Matthews about is if there's a case of sex discrimination, that would go to legal. If it's a case of a really horrible boss, that would go to the auditor. Is that sort of, there's certainly, if it's a protected class, legal needs to hear about it.
You know, and we had a case in the investment council where there was a case of discrimination, sexual discrimination or whatever, and it was never told to it was all handled by the executive or whatever, the manager people.
I think
it was never told to the board, to the investment council that this was up. And until it was all done and they moved money around and fixed it or whatever, paid them to solve it. And they were never really told that it happened until later.
Yeah. I think I
don't want that happening to the council.
About 6 years ago.
Well,
I might have worked on that one, I think.
Oh,
but what I will say is, so how, you might say, well, what if it's a cover-up? The cover-up is separate. So if somebody's saying, my boss is making passes at me, that needs to go to HR and legal. However, if HR and legal do nothing, now it's HR and legal are not following their duties. That activates the auditor. Right. So the auditor's there to make sure everyone's doing their job. Other people already have jobs of dealing with these protected class issues. Does that distinction make sense? Okay. This last part here, I'm sorry. Oops. No. Whatever. Okay. K is a beyond reproach portion. It's the city auditor nor any employee in the city office of city audit will engage in any partisan political activities or political affairs during working hours. So an example of how we might see this, and I'm not saying that city officials engage in political behavior, but for example, it would not be uncommon for a city person to go speak at, say, Federated Republican Women. It would be during working hours. It's great as community outreach. We want nothing whatsoever that imputes the auditor's perceived impartiality. So nothing like that. From 8 to 5, they're parked up there, they're having lunch at Peppers or something, but they're not going to any functions. Now, after hours, First Amendment obviously kicks in, they can do whatever they want. But we want to make it very clear that work hours is absolutely nothing political one way or the other. And finally, professional standards. There's two main accreditation standards for that could apply here. Institute for Internal Auditors has one, and so does the Association of Inspector Generals. I think that should be the guiding principles for this office, depending on what they're investigating. Right. If it's a purely financial thing, the Inspector General rules aren't going to be as useful as the audit rules. And then finally, and this is how the governing body would. Each investigation, and so this is an important part. So if the auditor actually undertakes an investigation, they now activate a reporting duty. So this is how you would know if the auditor is just chasing a rat. Like you get a report from them. How many investigations you have? 5. Do you have any reports? No. 4 months later, do you have any reports? No. How many investigations? 48. So the report is going to include, and typically this, depending on the nature of the report, this would be presented to council in closed session. There's other possibilities depending again on the nature of the report. So citations of law or policy that are violated, validity of the allegations, the employees and their chain of command, description of corrective action or discipline. So like part 4, for if there's a concern that is handing out slaps on the wrist for very silly, for very serious things. The auditor can find that and make a closed report to you guys in executive session about the pattern and practice of under punishing or over punishing. Criminal violations, likelihood of success on the prosecution. So this is a nice thing to know. Summary of all evidence, so you should be getting a full package. So not only is the auditor making a finding himself, but you can be your own judge. And then finally, a description of prosecutory agencies that may be contacted or have been involved. That way you guys know if something's out there. And then sections 2, 3, and this should be 4, so I'm just going to fix that right now, are all standard oil. I realize it's 6:45 and I've talked a long time. So if you wanted to talk about this again in a month, I totally understand.
Well, what I really like to do is, this is a lot of information and it's all new to us. And I feel we need to digest it and then come back and revisit this issue again. Because parts like of the auditor, they're going to audit processes and things and how we fix processes in the city or whatever the issues are. It's not just always investigative, but we need to come back and we need to redefine these things. I think there were other items in the code that I don't know whether they all got addressed or not. When we sat down with the city manager, there were some other items in there that we talked about, but I don't know whether we got them addressed or not. One was election and campaign contributions.
Yes, so
we discussed that because.
And I think it's probably, it's a different part of the code.
Right.
It might be best addressed with separate legislation.
Right. Well, I was trying to grab as many as we could. Let's get this thing done.
But I can absolutely draft something else for you for the next meeting then.
Yeah, because just so you all know, and I think everybody in here does know, that campaign contributions don't have to be reported. There's a slim window when you campaign contributions are reported.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. It is. And so, my feeling was, I don't think you can do that on the state level. You got to report them all. In the city of Roswell, you don't. If you get received a campaign contribution before November 1, you don't have to report it. Nobody knows. That's not right. It's not transparent. So I was going to go and incorporate that. If you raise $1 or whatever you raise above $100, I don't care if it's off cycle or not, you're going to report it. So people know what's going on. And so I want to go after, I want that to be incorporated or us to look at that as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Something else that I would like to discuss in that vein, elections, is getting us on the odd year in November instead of having a special election in March. Cost us $75,000 to do an election. That's from the city coffers.
Right.
It's a money saving issue. It puts you on a cycle. I don't know what it'll do to the voter turnout. Hopefully it'll increase it.
Yeah.
And I want that because I'm sure that's all in the same section.
Yes, so that's a little different to do, and I'd have to double check the state election law.
Well, I'm informed because I inquired that it wasn't a one and done back whenever you had the first opportunity. I think we could still got under the state law. My read is we can still opt in.
Yeah, we can still opt in. I don't immediately recall the mechanism.
I understand. I'm just, first time I've talked about it, been thinking about it some, but the first time I've talked about it. And we'll discuss it. We're going to discuss all this stuff more than once.
But the other side of that coin too is that's also moving us into the R&D camps about who's running for what.
No. You don't give up that. You don't have to give up the independence of your
nonpartisanship.
It can still be a nonpartisan deal because water board, the Pecos Valley water guys, they're not, the school district is not partisan. You can maintain that position as being a nonpartisan, and but just change the date. And by the way, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I don't care, but there's going to be some people who are going to get all excited about giving up 4 months of their term. But if we do it now, everybody gives up the same 4 months or whatever that number really is. And, you know, in the past, the city of Roswell has an election, and then as soon as it's certified, you walk in, you take the oath of office. Whenever we did it, we had 30 days roughly between actual vote counting and swearing in. And you could also put in, just kind of make life a little easier for people to grasp. You get elected, you have the campaign in November, and then you actually take the oath of office at the first of the year. That's uniform, I think, throughout the election code for everybody else.
Yeah, and my only thing, is that if you have people appearing in different groups, just like, some of those federations of people don't like to hear from Democrats.
Well, and there's some.
I mean, it's just all I'm saying is everybody ought to have the same opportunity to be exposed to whoever they're talking to. I mean, that's about being fair.
Okay, let's, yes, Ms. Stubbs.
Elections that have moved to November are in November of the odd number of years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
General.
Yeah, that way you go to the polls in November, every November, there's an election of some kind.
Yeah.
School board.
Well, then they don't save us the money.
Well, yeah, it doesn't save the state any money. It saves us money. And the county clerk runs your elections. So if you get a clerk quit just before the vote, then you don't
call her names, you don't quit.
Well,
Okay,
understand.
I'm going to move this on.
Thank you.
I'm going to move this on. So I'm going to tell you.
I'm going to bring it up for discussion.
You can bring it up for discussion later. We're not going to have any more discussion.
Everything goes on the consent calendar. I'd put it on that.
And I'll take it off.
Thanks a lot.
That is correct. So I'm going to add, this was to.
This was put to recommendation in case I hit such a slam dunk.
Yeah. But I think this thing needs some more input and work.
Yes.
And so.
Review it again.
Pardon?
So do you want us to come back with suggestions as far as?
That's what I think that we should come back or give your suggestions to.
This is a lot of changes.
Yeah.
The compliance, certain things are compliance. That's.
Because we're scheduled to meet November the 17th.
Yes.
Is when we're scheduled to meet next time. So that should give us.
Are you going to make that?
Yeah, I'll make that one. It's the other one. We want to talk about that day too. So.
If, Mr. Chairman, workshops are another option if that's what you'd like.
We could do that. We could have a special workshop and pick a date here between today and November 17th, maybe 2 weeks prior to that.
Yes.
Your wish is mine.
No, that's a great idea.
That'd be great, but could you get me a list of people you might want to have to replace Juan after his comment? We might need to change the committee.
I'm on your side, buddy.
Yeah, so.
The mayor and I will go to blows over this one.
I guess we'll have a workshop and pick a date here and get this out to all counselors so that they can attend the workshop.
Yeah, this is a big fight.
Yeah, it is.
During the workshop, I would like to have a discussion of how the hearings are conducted. Because you have that hearing and then you're asked to vote right there and then. instead of having another 30 days or whatever to really sink in, for the information to sink in and be able to digest it.
Right.
And so whether that's a possibility or not, I'll just put it up there.
Like refer to the zoning hearing or something like that, things like that. Is that?
Well, I'm saying we have the hearing at the regular city council meeting.
Right.
And then you're asked to vote right there and then, right after the hearing.
Yes, so that I absolutely love to work with you on that. Council's procedures, making quasi judicial determinations could be greatly improved.
As long,
We could incorporate, would that need to be incorporated in this code or is that?
No.
That would go into our administrative procedures section.
Okay.
Part 3.
I agree. Yes.
no, as long as we're talking about all this stuff, should we look at if there's a better way to divide the committees up? I mean, where it's 2 to 2 or whatever. I mean, I don't know. With 10, it's really difficult to come up with, but if you had committees with 5 or odd numbers on it, but to me, I don't know, it just seems weird sometimes when you have everybody go to a committee and it's 2 to 2. And
Well, we tried to come up with.
I know, but if he found something else, that might work.
Those
I don't know.
are our rules of order and they didn't go anywhere. We got to wait 6 months to come back and readdress this.
Although you're pretty close at this point. If you were to instruct me to start drafting, you wouldn't get through till after the 6 months.
We're not quite there. We got another, I think, 2 months before we can get there. if I
Not a
recall.
good drafter.
So.
He's not very fast.
So getting all these other issues he's got to deal with.
So if I could get a motion to postpone this item, because we put it on here to advertise for a public hearing.
Yeah, that was premature.
Well, Ed, you've been real verbose today, causing trouble.
Okay, well, I make a motion that we postpone.
Amending the city's administrative code.
Yeah,
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to postpone until November 17th. We want to bring it back then?
Sure.
Yes.
You don't want to have a workshop in?
Well, we're going to have a workshop in between. We'll call a workshop.
Okay, fair enough.
So
So are you saying have a workshop on the 17th and then turn around and have a meeting right there and then?
no, I think we're going to have a workshop in about, can you be ready in 2 weeks for a workshop?
Let's speak, I would like to speak privately with all of you about.
Well, no, we don't have 2 weeks because this is the 27th. We won't, we'll just postpone this thing and we've got to have a workshop
For another date.
until further notice.
We don't have to get it done, right away.
No.
Yeah, it's a workshop in 2 weeks, I can absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll do this until further notice, if that's okay to amend your, can we have a second?
Yeah.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, there being none, so pass.
One of you guys wanted to pass this.
Does that make it 4 to 0?
Well,
I want to have this.
Okay, let's move on. It's getting late. Next item on the agenda is amendment to the resolutions 1827 and 1844, resolution creating the Roswell Board Advisory Commission.
that's mine, so we're going to do that.
Yours and Mr. Hess's.
Well, I know.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, everybody. This, Councilor Corn had wanted to have a more, I wouldn't call it more expansive powers because the airport commission still is a purely recommended body. But it would clarify the procedure through which legal committee would deal with the airport commission or the air center commission and what topics they would address. So I consider this more of a clarifying those resolution than expansive. The recital here is just to no offense, guys, but it's a little ego stroking for the commission because I have to work with them. So we appreciate their expertise and want to increase their input. Sorry. Yeah. In spelling, I can work on that. All right. Now, the core is subsection B, which So, sorry, subsection A. Originally, this was by and through the manager. However, what we noticed, at least in the legal department, is a bunch of this stuff is going to legal no matter what.
Right.
So what we're having legal be the hub of the air centers, commissions, not transactions, but recommendations. So the commission will make recommendations through the legal committee. That's our process. Commission to legal to council. And we also want to make it explicit that they will give recommendations on leases and contracts, which is slightly broader language. Part B, I'll just read aloud because it works. Commission shall make recommendations. Apologize. I don't know. All right. Shall make recommendations to council committee regarding all their center matters, excluding litigation and employment. So if this is a recommended body, I would prefer they not do. HR is its own animal and employees are entitled to some additional protections. And as far as litigation, sometimes that just has to stay. If the government body chooses to share, that's fine, but I prefer you guys play that as close to your chest as when an item affecting the center is sent to the legal committee, it will immediately refer to the commission for discussion at the next meeting. So anything that would normally go to you guys that has air center on it, we'll just kick it to them, and then it'll come to you. Procedurally speaking, it's the way we do it already. And the leases that we have today, you guys are the commission. And then staff will forward it up. And then finally, I wanted to clarify what the commissioners would have access to. So the commission will have full access to records, excluding employee files and records precluded by law. Employee files, again, we don't want, this is not an HR committee by design. And precluded by law is referring to TSA and FAA matters that is confidential or security sensitive. If the council chooses, this is very changeable if the council would like commission input, but I will say the TSA is kind of tight about how many people they allow having direct knowledge of their plans and things like that. As you're well aware, council.
You gotta have a non-disclosure. Right. For that access.
And then just an administrative change to follow practice. The staff members staff will be responsible for the minutes. They'll take them, they'll keep them, they'll present them for, that's the way it's been practiced. For anybody who's been on the committee, having to keep your own minutes is really hard. So we're just cleaning that up to match practice. Otherwise, those are the amendments. Improved access to records and a clear line of what branch of the city council the commission reports to.
Can I ask a question? Can we also clarify in item number 5, term of office, initial appointment and compensation? Can we also clarify that no city councilor or staff member or the mayor can be included as part of?
We can type that in right now if you guys vote as or I guess I could type it in now and you can vote as the whole thing because we're not quite following any standardized procedures. That's how you like the procedure.
No, I think we're going to maybe some other changes here.
What's your concern again? I'm sorry.
The concern that I have is what happened the last time when this was created, that the mayor recommended himself.
Yeah.
And then I'm not saying Mayor Jennings is going to do that, but Mayor Jennings is not going to be here forever.
You don't know that.
Yes, I do.
You're not going to be here 50 years from now.
I mean, yes, I do. But I think one of our policies in our rules, if I remember correctly, state that no staff member will be part of the committee, a standing committee or an active.
Well,
commission.
I concur with that because I think it's ludicrous on our part to form these advisory committees, whatever they are, and have a bunch of city councilors and the mayor or something on there. Then you lose the ability to gain the experience that these people bring to the table because hopefully, I know Tim's working diligently, but in the future, that they look at their professional qualifications to be a benefit to the advisory council, therefore being a benefit to the city council and the governance of the city of Roswell. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, and maybe that should say elected officials as well. Does it cover, when you say city officers, that covers elected officials and appointed?
Right, so there's officers and employees.
Now, so if we did that, would that mean that county commissioners couldn't be on?
I think you need some commas in there. City officers, comma.
Yeah.
employees, comma.
So we can just say neither.
Might have gone to Harvard, be out of passed that thing like, you know.
If you'd like to type mayor, that'd probably be better, actually.
I think it was Michigan, I'm not sure.
Well, undergrad was.
Yeah, Michigan, I majored in accounting, billing.
I'm a functional illiterate, okay.
Ramberley.com. Check everything.
Elected officials.
Elected officials, appointed official offices are.
How do you feel about like legislators or anything like that?
I think y'all just put it, any elected official, period. Municipal, county commissioner.
I don't want to do that. You may knock off somebody that, as long, an elected count, if they're outside, they have nothing to do with the city, is my opinion.
Well,
But I don't know what you guys think, but if what we're trying not to do is get the city itself on its own commission.
Well,
that's what I thought the councilor
Well,
would.
and also staff, because Jim is here and he was appointed as part of the, one of the original board members of the, and I think, I wouldn't even talk for him, but if I was in his shoes, I would feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Making decisions for.
Well, it's just crazy. If you're going to appoint an independent advisory council at whatever cemetery, whatever comes to mind, and then you load it up with a bunch of
staff or employees
and elected officials, why do you need the dadgum advisory council?
Right.
So I just differentiate, or I'm not in favor. I don't see the bigger you have about other elected officials. I just think because they're more involved, it meets the eye.
Yeah.
And I think, once again, we go back to that, the reason why we have these advisory councils
Yeah.
is to get more ideas to the table and with their various expertise level.
That's fine.
So I just think you need to
take out the word municipal and take out the word municipal, and either elected officials.
And if you,
I think
if we go ahead, if we ever end up with the airport authority and you have it by city and county people both on there, you just only exclude the city elected officials. That's not going to work.
Well,
but this is, that's a different issue.
The GPA would look at.
That's a different issue.
if we do that, it's going to be its own fish tank.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this one exists.
And this is for what we got now. If we make a decision to do something in conjunction with the county, then it's going to have its own set of.
Okay, can we move on, Counselor?
Can I mention something? I'm sorry, but I see always, sorry, Mr. Chair, very quickly, to answer you. In section 5, it does say that there shall be a goal ensuring that at least one member of the commission resides outside of the city.
That's what was there before.
Already says that. And I don't think it's been done. But once.
So that if the city wanted, the language is aspirational. So the word goal is not binding typically in law. So if the city wanted to make a decision one way or the other, we can make more definitive language. So this is simply saying it's a good idea to have somebody out there, and that's a goal, but
You don't have
you don't have to.
It's not a requirement. But it might be a requirement if we join forces with, if we're able to convince the city and come up with it, then it's desirable because that's what the state law says.
Is there anything in this requirement that makes your commission members be a resident of the city of Roswell?
No. You can, it has a goal of appointing at least one member outside the city.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no requirement that they all be from the city. Anybody be from the city. I mean, it just.
Well, but you have to give yourself some credence.
Yeah.
But that's what you're going to do is.
And you're the stress, this is, the council must approve. So if the council wants somebody from outside the city, they can make it so by not approving.
Yeah.
This is just.
And we have,
and
you make those nominations to different boards all the time.
Yeah.
And we can either vote them up or vote them down. And so I don't see a problem.
Are you happy with municipal elected officials, municipal officers, and municipal?
Just take out the word municipal on elected officials.
And you got it.
And you got it.
All right.
Yeah, I want to go.
So the county manager could be on this commission now.
Yeah, not elected. If you want, if you met the criteria. I do want to go back to 2B. And when you say when an item affecting the Roswell Air Center is sent to the legal committee, it will be immediately referred. There may be instances where that's not the case. I would rather see the word it may.
May.
Or something to that effect, because you're saying anything that comes to legal has got to go to the airport commission. Well, that's not always I can see that that's not always the case.
Would you?
And to slow down city government one more time.
Yeah.
Is not the goal.
But that's right. We're trying to get this thing in a tunnel and get from one end of the tunnel to the other.
It already takes.
How about putting a veto on? So the default is it goes unless the chair says otherwise. What we put in is the committee will be immediately referred for discussion at their next meeting unless the chair of the legal committee says that dictates otherwise.
Yeah, you can.
So I guess I'm trying to make it anyway. I'm trying to make an operating procedure, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it would be, somebody say legal refers something to you, and the committee would, if it's a lease, would immediately go there. But if this is an emergency lease, you'd be like, no, we're not doing that. And you hold it.
Sure. So I think it's fine to let the chair of the committee do that.
Yeah.
If everyone else is agreement, we don't need to have the whole legal committee to decide that.
You guys are all quiet. I agree.
Well, people should go there, or might it ever have to go straight to council?
Good.
I mean, that's all, it limits it.
Well, so this doesn't change the fact that 4 people can put anything in front of the council. That's an ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so this is just internal committee. That's if also the mayor can put anything in front of the council at his discretion. So there's that.
Yeah, you've got that stroke. All right. Okay. All right.
Could you put pay raises on the?
No, that's another section.
I'm very sorry.
Come on, let me just very quickly, under city code law, under Article 4 boards and commissions, section 2-97 membership. Does say any commission shall be a resident of Chavis County. That has said otherwise, and it hasn't been, so it doesn't say Roswell, it says Chavis County. This is law. No person regularly employed or on full-time basis by the city shall be appointed to any board, commission unless stated otherwise. And the officers of the city not appointed as regular members may be appointed as ex officio members, not regular members. And no member of the immediate family of an elected city officer shall be appointed to any board or commission. And a member may not be appointed by the city to serve on more than one board or commission at the same time.
That's
in law.
Well, yeah, but that's not what we're doing here. this is a subset.
What you're doing with what Juan was just talking about, I think it's already covered in law.
So
Then we're going to restate it.
We had a member of the Airport Advisory Commission as well as chair of the P&Z Commission, and that was against this too.
Yeah.
Well, but those were violations that were done contrary to what you're reading.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
So the point is,
Judy,
we need to be paying attention to law.
Judy,
Yes.
that was yesterday. We're moving forward today.
I'm trying to help you move forward.
I understand that this is one way.
I just hate redundancy because you change one place and you could and neglect to change it somewhere else. And then you don't know which one to answer to. So my point is, this is in the law already. Go ahead, but I'm just saying, never mind.
It's just the West variable taken, it is redundant. I was unaware of that rule, which I should have been, and that, thank you for pointing it out. Although I guess it's, some bad thing for a lawyer. I assume since the mayor served on it and the council would have checked that to follow the law.
But they didn't.
Yep, that's a bad assumption.
Yes, we did. So we were overridden by the majority. Yep.
Well, and that's one of the situations that the city of Roswell seems to get itself in is we've got a set of rules, except when we don't want to follow the rules.
Yep.
And we can't do that, in my opinion.
The rules are the rules.
And government is supposed to have flat playing field. Here are the rules of the game.
Yeah.
If you want to play, here are the rules of the game. Don't go outside the bounds. And we shouldn't have any, well, that's all right, Ed, I know we'll get this done.
No,
Kind of stuff. You play by the same rules.
or change the rules.
Or change the rules.
So,
We're just making it crystal clear with this group that this is what we want to do because we don't want to have a chance for anybody gets overruled again.
are you okay with that wording?
The wording is absolutely legal sufficient. I apologize that I haven't caught that sooner. That's it.
Okay, so if we're fine with that and you feel it covers us,
Yeah, the only thing is it's actually broader because it covers all elected officials.
yeah,
I think that's fine.
okay.
If you don't serve on the airport board, resign your office. I mean,
It's that simple.
I think we've got qualifications to add to those people, to those regulations, and I'm a city councilor.
Okay, let's,
Oh, that's right. I was just reminded I wouldn't get my $200 every 2 weeks. You might want to go over there to be free.
okay, can I get a motion on this as amended?
Chairman, will move forward. Where are we on the, I got so much paper here that we move to the city council.
Yeah.
Amendment to resolution 18-27 and 18-44 dealing with, it says resolution creating, which I think is what it is, but we're amending that creation for the Airport Advisory Committee as amended.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Do I hear any other discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Sorry about this, Matt, that you had to sit here and wait all day. But
That's all right. He's been entertained. He didn't go to sleep, so I know he was in interested discussion.
So I'm going to let you move on to item number 8.
For your information, there's some typos.
Yes,
You'll clean them up.
yeah, the typos were cleaned up as we spoke.
Yeah, we got.
All right.
You'll run spell check next.
Boring now.
Sorry about
Councilors,
Basically, this is what we're calling the second posting of our RFP for our fire truck maintenance and service repair contract stuff. I think everybody's fairly familiar with it. You've kind of heard about it already once or twice.
Yeah.
So basically, if you see questions, Jeremy and I are here, we'll try our best to answer. Josh can help us a lot. He helps a lot with the contract. This is Arnie from First Vehicle Services. He came just in case you guys had any special questions.
I mean, I read the agreement. I have no questions. I think you passed on the agreement. You're okay with the agreement.
When does this take effect? I don't remember.
So in theory, it would be after the next council meeting.
Okay.
Pending it, the approval.
Yeah.
Chairman, not my turn.
Well.
Mr. Chairman, could I add one thing to it for sufficiency here is I'm excited about this because of currently they're using a vendor out of Albuquerque that's bringing their EVTs in.
Yeah.
Lubbock. They will have these EVTs, emergency vehicle technicians, certified technicians here locally to work on our fire apparatus. So to me, it's a huge step forward for the maintenance and repair of our fire.
I agree with you. I think we've heard that.
Yeah.
It's a great deal because your turnaround is so much better.
And the travel fees are eating us alive.
Okay.
That's a big factor.
Yeah. And so this should be a cost saving item just for your part.
Throw that out.
No, I think it's great that you bring that back up, Mike. I don't think everyone else is aware of that. So, are you two?
We're done.
One is going to make this motion.
Yeah, we got it. She wanted to make it, so I'll yield. Hurry. It's late.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council.
It's Council Order this time.
Well, whatever you want to do. Still in charge.
All right. Okay. All right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to consider recommending approval of award recommendation for RFP 22-007, second posting fire apparatus for preventative maintenance and repair services to First Vehicle Services of Cincinnati, Ohio. That's all I have, sorry, to full council. I'm sorry, to the consent agenda.
There you go. Thank you.
Sorry. It's getting down there.
I have a first and a second concerning RFP 22-007. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have one thing. Are we done with this one finally?
Very well put. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same. There being none. So moved.
Especially.
Sorry, you guys had to stay so long.
I wasn't sure I could throw my voice to say and on the consent agenda.
I was calling for it.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thanks, man.
Bye, guys, thank you.
Okay, we have a non-action item, which is the electronic billboards and signs, and I believe that is.
Yes, this is just very quick. I wanted to alert the council that.
Do we have anything up there?
No, there's nothing. This is just something that I wanted to throw out in case anybody wanted to give legal further direction. Presently, the Supreme Court earlier this year had a free speech case where they reaffirmed the ability for municipalities to distinguish between what's called on-premise and off-premise advertising. On-premise advertising would be something like electronic billboard or bank versus where they advertise things for the bank, as opposed to off-premise advertising, which would be the billboard for the bank is used to advertise Lottaburger across the street. So the Supreme Court confirmed that municipalities may regulate on and off-premise advertising as they see fit. Now, I bring this up because our electronic sign ordinance, at least as it involves highways, which is Main Street, is not uniform with the state's DOT rules. And if we are interested in cleaning it up, it might be worthwhile to re-examine that and make our sign ordinance along Main Street, at the very least, or the rest of the city, uniform with the state rules that way. But an employer or a business doesn't have to go through two different types of hurdles.
Right. And we got two highways. We got Main Street and we got Second Street.
Right.
Probably should do that.
Well, Second Street is not on the list of, so it's the National Highway System highways. But I think for us, for clarity's sake, it'd be better just to adopt a state rule throughout the city. If you like the state rule, that is.
Well,
so
we need to know what the state.
I would like to change one thing on the state rule. Regards to advertising for business, and Pioneer Bank for, in fact, we promote events throughout the city on it. And the city says you can promote Pioneer Bank. So I would like to add, so we can promote.
Can we do that?
Well, so the state rule we can't overturn, but we could have the state rule minus the off-premise advertising for the rest of the city.
That's it. Now, let me ask you about Second Street.
That was not on the map that the state that I pulled up.
So, I mean, because they advertise out there on that electronic billboard.
Yep.
Different events, community events as well, besides.
Under the ordinance, that is not necessarily allowed depending on how it's done.
And when our ordinance doesn't allow motion within 5 or 6.
Right, you have to have our ordinance, if I'm recalling correctly, has 8 seconds video.
Right.
The state, I believe, is 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Another thing to consider is, there's a lot of federal guidance about best practices that we might consider.
Right. And these are on private, not billboards for hire, correct?
Correct. Yeah, these are signs on private property.
I would like to maybe see, because I think some of the good things that I think really only affects 2 people in a city, Pioneer Bank.
No, if you go down in Maine, you'll see McDonald's has stuff, Valero up north, and they all do what we do.
Do they put other people's events?
No, they do. They do not put other.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I
If they
think.
want to.
No, I don't think so.
Another, like the race.
I know Pioneer Bank and the Crumlin Group will put
Yeah.
community events up on their electronic billboards. And why should we penalize the community for saying that's illegal?
Yep. So and so it's a not recognized issue in the code that could be very easily changed.
Is there any way? She comes in.
I've been watching.
Oh, okay. Is there any way we can actually have you work something up and then add it to an upcoming agenda?
I'm asking, I guess it's, I have very little self-starting ability. As a human.
Can you?
So if you tell me to do it, I'll do
Can you
it.
please fix something up and then bring it to a future? Thank you. You want to do it in a workshop? Yeah, it's probably,
Yeah,
okay.
that's going to need some discussions.
Yep.
The other thing that I was visiting with Hess, and we'll move on that, because I just think that you need to allow, we'll see what council.
Well, I just thought a discussion deserved merit. I mean,
So the other one I talked to Hess about today, and it came up, was all of this different city properties. And I talked to Mr. Matthews about this as well. I would like to see that we could take a look at some of these lots that we've condemned and we foreclosed on, and turning those into developments of, one we talked about was maybe veterans, or rewarding people of, I shouldn't say rewarding, giving the opportunity to people that they wouldn't have an opportunity to maybe build a home if veterans groups, or veterans was one of the things that we spoke about, maybe disabled people or whatever, somebody with, should say disabled, people with difficulties. But I would like for the city to take a look at how we can do those, turn those into viable homes and put them back on the tax rolls and move ahead. But I would really like to address that, and I guess we could address that through legal.
Yes.
Is where to start that whole process, because those properties sitting on the city rolls don't do a bit of good for anybody. And so we might as well try to put them to usage and do some,
go mow the weeds.
And do some benefit. He didn't have to mow those weeds.
Well, we make him mow the weeds.
So that's my comment about that. So now, will you want to go back and see if there's any other announcements? And now we need to check and see if there's any public participation or wear them out.
I think they're gonna warn them out, come back to the screen. We still got some people there.
We got two comments.
Eight already.
Yeah, she's had a supper, man. You're not.
I think what she's saying that she thanked us for cutting the audio out.
Got it subbed out?
That I fixed it, so she, yeah.
Fixing it, so.
Do we have any public participation at this point in time? From MLG, Bruce Andler, Vicki Burris, Guess, John Hitchcock, or caller 01? Anything? Going, gone.
I'm waving back at Jim and Juliana because they waved at me.
Oh.
Meeting is adjourned. Oh, yes, we do need to talk about, adjourned, we can talk. The December 22nd. One, hey, one, I need to talk about the December 22nd meeting.